Do people in Canada have cable, like other people?
We keep this up in the playoffs. I don't care.
And at Chili's. Is it a Chili's?
Achilles.
Finally.
You don't know that?
Fuck you! Get this guy the fuck out of here!
Alright, well, coming in at number 5, I got Anthony Stolarz.
Now! Jets are winning the cup!
Thank you for watching and listening. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the NordCast. It is Wednesday, February 19th, 2025. I am your host here, Nork97, joined with Kata. Kata, how we doing?
Doing pretty good. Could be doing a little bit better, but I mean, you know, we'll see how it goes.
I feel like we could all be. This might be a brutal episode from us because I think we're both feeling a little bit under the weather. As you can probably tell, my voice does not sound how it normally is. I sound very raspy. I have a cough drop in my mouth right now, so hopefully I don't cough a ton in this episode. But we're feeling a little bit under the weather in this episode. Carter, how's your week been? You've had some pretty interesting stuff go on.
I mean, yeah, I guess kind of interesting. Had family fly in from London, UK, so it's been nice to get to see them this week. I got the rest of this week off for school reading week, and so just trying to capitalize on getting sleep, but that's not going to happen because still got to work. So I mean, hey, take the wins how we can get them.
At least you don't have to work, at the very least.
I do have to work.
You said you took the week off.
No, I said I get the week off school. I still got to work.
Oh, I think I'm at work. Okay.
No. I still got to work. I still need money.
My apology. Well, yeah, I guess that makes sense. Have you been watching the Great Four Nations, though?
Realistically, I think I've caught maybe like 3 periods of games. I have been like,
wow.
I watched pretty much the entire Canada game, but I was out for lunch with said family. So I didn't get to watch it. I didn't get to watch Canada-US, which we'll get into in a little bit. I watched like the last 3 minutes of it, but we were out for a dinner and I was checking notifications for it on Reel. And that was a crazy game. Obviously, we'll touch base on that in a little bit, but no, I really haven't. So Thursday, thankfully, is a dedicated day so I can watch it. I can watch Canada-US Part 2, and I'm very excited for that one to get underway.
Well, we're going to get into Canada versus United States right now because that is the talk of this entire week. On Saturday, the United States took on Canada. It was an absolutely insane game. 3 fights in the first 9 seconds. I don't care if they were staged. I don't care. It was a very, very entertaining game. Again, the United States ended up taking the 3-1 win. But overall, the 3 fights in 9 seconds were incredible. The booing of the anthem, how Hellebuck locked it down, how Jordan Binnington let in one of the worst goals I've ever seen a goalie let in to tie that game up. But, Carter, I know you said you didn't watch it, but what were your takeaways from that game as a Canadian?
Well, I think obviously it starts off with literally the first 10 seconds. I mean, that really set the tone for what this game means, and I think how important national pride is for these players, because obviously we could talk about the whole booing of the anthem thing. I think the whole thing is fucking stupid. Like it's stupid. Like I understand where it's coming from, but at the end of the day, like it's not going to change. Nothing's going to change by booing anything. Like you're not really sending a crazy good message. So whatever. But I mean, I think that, other than that, I think that really showed how important national pride is. I think this whole tournament has showcased how important national pride is in hockey and in sports in general. I think that's kind of something that's lost in the NBA, which is a big topic of discussion lately, is the NBA All-Star Game versus the NHL All-Star Game. And when you take into account kind of the major 4 sports, All-Star games have kind of gone to shit. Realistically, I think when you take it back 10 years, I think everyone was excited for the dunk contest. Everyone was excited for the actual gameplay itself, but no one really cares about that anymore in the NBA. Like, I'll watch the dunk contest maybe, but the game isn't fun. In the dunk contest, it was always cool to see, Vince Carter do these crazy cool dunks and like just so much talent. And now you get like not these big name guys participating in it, and that takes away so much of it. You got the MLB, which I didn't even know that the MLB threw on a crazy all-star game, but like really the only thing that people pay attention to is maybe the home run derby, right? Like there's one event in pretty much every single all-star game that people pay attention to. And I think that the NHL kind of thankfully realized that quick and took Four Nations, because as I said, national pride is one of the biggest things in the NHL. Like, all-star games are supposed to be fun. And they kept the fun in this, especially for the fans, but they introduced that national pride element, which is something that every single all-star game, I think, needs to try and incorporate, as hard as it is to do. But it's something that has to happen, because look, you got guys going out there making big hits like that Canada-US game. Charlie McAvoy had 2 hits on McDavid, 2 hits on Crosby, like nice hits too. Like, they were big hits.
One of them as well.
Yeah, exactly. It completely led to a goal, and like that's in our technical all-star game. Like, it's unbelievable. So the fact that the NHL was able to figure that out, and it's been probably the biggest success that they've had in the last few years, because it has absolutely brought so many new eyes to hockey, I feel like, especially with the start of that Canada-US game. I kind of went on a tangent there, but whatever. I think I touched base on most of my points.
No, I get what you're saying. I mean, like, people are tired of the regular all-star game, and a lot of people also think, too, like, it's just PR stunts for a lot of people. Like, people didn't like, Tate McRae was there, and then, like, the thing with Trevor Zegras 2 years ago, he did this stupid Michigan thing and all that. Everybody was, like, all up in arms about that the last couple of years, and we're just like, it's getting boring at this point, and the players don't care. You put them in an international tournament, and I said this on the MVP. You put them on an international tournament. No matter how meaningless it is, these players are going to play hard, because you're representing your country. No matter what it is, whether it's the Olympics, Four Nations, World Juniors, you are going to play hard because you are wearing your country on your chest and on your sleeve. And I think that the NHL, with this tournament idea, even though they're never going to do it again, I think what we're going to see after this is World Cup of Hockey and Olympics and All-Star games moving forward. But for this tournament, this has been an absolutely incredible idea by the NHL, and the viewership shows it. I'm going to read off some numbers here that I read off on the MVP. Canada versus Sweden averaged like 1.5 million viewers, which is more than any All-Star game and more than the last 3 Winter Classics. And that was a non-US game. When's the last time a non-US hockey game averaged more than 1 million viewers? That's unreal. For USA versus Finland, it averaged more viewers than any NHL All-Star game since 2022. It peaked around 2 million at one point, which is insane. And then, obviously, we knew that Canada versus the United States was going to be wild, and we knew that it was going to be a huge game. It was going to get a lot of viewers. And, yeah, we were right about that. 4.4 million viewers on ABC, which was the most watched non-Stanley Cup final game since 2019. The game peaked at 5.2 million viewers. And again, that's the most watched non-Stanley Cup final game in almost 10 years. This tournament has been the greatest idea the NHL has had in the history of me making videos, and definitely in the history of this podcast. And like, you look on that Saturday when they had the United States versus Canada, like, they finally did something right. They finally had a good marketing move, because you look at what happened on that Saturday night when the teams played each other. What was going on? The NBA All-Star game? That's about it. College basketball, more or less, but it's meaningless right now. Like, it doesn't mean a ton. I guess maybe no, UFC wasn't even happening either. So again, or wait, it was. Sorry, I looked at the date wrong. Yeah, so again, like they picked a perfect time where the NFL's on their break, the NBA is on their break, the MLB spring training starting I think tomorrow actually, but it's not going to be going on for a while. But again, just like they picked the perfect time, perfect idea, and it is going to grow the game dramatically. And we already talked about like before the tournament even started that the salary cap was going to go up, players were going to make more money back from escrow and all of that. And like the league was in such an incredible spot, and this tournament makes it even better. And it just makes me so excited for the 2026 Olympics, even though they are going to be at like 7 o'clock in the morning because it's in Milan. But yeah, just again, like I know I went on a tangent there too, but I have loved this tournament on all cylinders. Do you have anything more to add before we get more into Canada USA?
Yeah, I mean, I really hope that they do bring back international hockey instead of like an all-star game, because I think that I think it's so much better, honestly, like especially because you get I'm going to keep saying this, but you get national pride behind it rather than what, $100,000, to which most of these players is like, I guess in hockey, it's a little bit more than like 100,000 to like an NBA player or an NFL player, right? So it's a little bit more, but at the same time, these guys are making millions of dollars. So
it's still pocket change. It's not like there are league minimum players playing in this tournament. Like it's still pocket change.
Yeah.
Honestly.
So it's really nice to have. It's really nice to have for a change, and it's nice to see players best on best actually try and care.
Yeah, I'm going to say this about the All-Star game. It's only fun if it's in the city. Like, if you are there in person. That's really only when it's fun, because you have the things that are going on outside of that. Like, I remember when it was in Florida 2 years ago, they had, like, that shooting competition. You know, I remember Bartner went to it. There was all these different things that they did. And that, to me, would be entertaining. But not specifically, you know, watching it on TV. People don't give a shit. They don't care about seeing, oh, who can make the most saves in a row. Like, I'm sure there's some people that care, but I'm sure people heavily prefer this international tournament over just a silly-ass hockey game, a silly-ass, you know, meaningless all-star game than that. So that's kind of my opinion on that there, but I want to go back to Canada versus the United States because, again, that was an unreal game with the controversy, with the fights. Let's break down the game a little bit because I think that's the better way of kind of representing it. We'll go through, you know, the stats and all that. So, again, the starting goalies in the game were Connor Hellebuyck and Jordan Binnington, as we honestly expected. The game started off with Connor McDavid scoring the first goal, a nasty backhander on Connor Hellebuyck. And this is kind of an instance where, like, he let in the first goal, and, you know, he let in the first goal against Finland, and we're like, I don't know. But then the United States answered back relatively quickly, and it took them a little bit before they could finally tie the game. First off, I do also want to say that Jake Gensel tying goal was probably one of the worst goals I've seen Jordan Binnington let in. We got to get into a discussion on that as well. But the Larkin goal to make it 2-1 was an absolute rocket, and then it took them to the end of the third, but obviously, Jake Gensel scored the empty net goal, and the United States took the game 3-1. My main takeaway from that game, again, I do have more than Carter because I watched a lot more of the game. I still was at the Royals, but I did watch a lot of it. My main takeaway was that the United States did not give Canada any room. They didn't give them that much room out there on the ice, which was a huge advantage. And therefore, a lot of Canada's shots, like, again, I know the deserve to win meter was insanely in favor of Canada, but a lot of those shots that Canada was getting, they were from the point. They were from the outside. It was a very well defensively played game by the United States, and I think a guy like, as Carter said, Charlie McAvoy, who laid some massive hits on McDavid and Crosby. Like, again, McDavid, like, absolutely embarrassed McAvoy on that first goal, and McAvoy after that was like, screw that, I'm locking down, and he leveled McDavid and leveled Crosby both twice. So again, he was somebody who looked really impressive for me. Slavin as well was incredible defensively too. And then Connor Hellebuyck was obviously great too. So again, just a very well played defensive game by the United States. If you're going to beat Canada, you're going to have to play that way again. For Canada, you're going to need to adjust. You're going to need to focus on getting more high danger opportunities, shooting the puck when you have it. there were a lot of times, especially like in the other games too that they played, where they were kind of, going pass first, and I'm like, yeah, I get it. Crosby wants to set up these nasty passes, but you also should shoot when you get the opportunity. You shouldn't just be passing the puck all the time and being a team player. You got to shoot that damn puck, especially on Connor Hellebuyck. Like, 26 shots is nice and all, but you're going to need more on that to score on Hellebuyck. I'm sure Carter, as a Jets fan, can confirm. But I want to lay a little bit more on Jordan Binnington. Heading into the final, Jordan Binnington, I think, has had some rough goals he's allowed, especially in the game against Finland, where it looked like it was over, being 4-1, and then he let in 2 goals in 10 seconds and made it 4-3. So yeah, I wanted to ask you a little bit there, Carter. Are you confident in Jordan Binnington heading into the final against the USA?
Honestly, no. He's looked shaky kind of all tournament. And obviously he was Canada's biggest question coming into this tournament. So ultimately, kind of seeing this, it sucks, but it was expected. But I mean, I think we got to do a little more in the offensive zone, and I think it kind of starts with getting shots on net. That's what it comes down to with Canada, is we have so much talent, and we have a lot of goal scorers on this team. One who should be on this team, but we're not going to talk about that right now. No, but we just got to shoot the puck a little more. And with Connor Hellebuyck, he's really good all around. There's not a lot of holes in his game, so it's really hard to beat him. But if you can find those spots, which he does have in his game, obviously I don't know what they are because I can't break down Connor Hellebuyck stats, but I mean, genuinely, like there's ways that you can beat him, and I've seen it time and time again. I think you got to look at how Colorado beat him. You got to look at like just how he goes in the playoffs, because playoffs is one thing that he's kind of struggled with as of kind of throughout his entire career. Honestly, it's not really something that's been a strong point for him. So as a Jets fan, having the chance for him to actually win kind of a playoff game in a big tournament of best on best would be huge for his confidence going forward. But honestly, it's a Canada thing, and I'm trying to make sure that you and Jack have to chug maple syrup. So I really hope that he doesn't play too well, but if he does play well, I think it'll help him in the future. But I think that Canada knows how to beat him, and it's just going to be about actually implementing it on Thursday night.
Well, not only am I going to have to chug a thing of maple syrup if Canada wins, I have to recite the whole Constitution.
Yeah, you do.
I'm not trying to do that. So, yeah, I'm going to go back to Binnington for a second. I mean, I have made it very vocal that I am not a fan of Binnington. I just don't trust him, simply being put. I think that Aiden Hill should be in that net over Jordan Binnington, in my opinion. I mean, we can get into the fact that I don't think that either of them should be in this tournament. I think it should be Logan Thompson and like maybe a Mackenzie Blackwood or Darcy Kemper. But again, we've gotten into that so many times in this podcast. And I think, honestly, if Canada loses on Thursday, we might be back here and Carter might be saying the same things I'm saying right now. But again, like, I don't trust Binnington. I'm sorry, I don't. I get it. He is a good goaltender. He is an above average, solid starting goaltender, but he should not be playing in a best on best tournament. I think I've made that very clear in all of the things that I've said on all of my platforms. I just don't trust him. I don't. And seeing how, like, again, like, they did beat Sweden. They did beat Finland. They barely lost to the United States. Did you see the goals he let in, though? Letting in 2 goals in 10 seconds against Finland, being a part of Canada blowing that 3-1 lead against Sweden in the first game, letting in that awful tying goal against Gensel in the USA. He's not consistent enough. He's not consistent enough to be a best-on-best goaltender. And I just think that's really what's going to affect Canada in this final. I mean, can he lock it down? Maybe, but again, you see Connor Hellebuck on the other side, who has lacked in the playoffs prior. This is playoffs. It isn't at the same time. It's going to feel like a final. It might even be more. It might even be bigger than the finals, depending on what the finals are this year. But I trust Hellebuck more than I do Binnington. I trust Hill more than I trust all three of USA's goalies more than Jordan Binnington. I trust Hill more than I trust Binnington too. I just don't trust him. As for the scoring, look, they have the firepower where they can do it. Again, I know that Canada made it a lot of their excuse that they didn't have Kyle McCarr on their power play, which didn't make it good. You have enough firepower on that blue line anyway or enough firepower on that team anyway to put together a realistic power play. But I digress. I think that heading into this final game, which is what we'll get into now about like the finals preview, there's a lot on the line. We have not seen either of these teams play in a best-on-best tournament besides that round-robin game, and I think over 10 years. Besides World Juniors, when we're looking in terms of like international Olympic play, World Juniors is different because that's U18, and you have those teams competing every year, and they usually play each other at least once per year. But for the Olympics and international play, it's not something that you see too often, especially over the last 10 years or so. So there is a ton on the line from that perspective, and I think there's a lot on the line for Canada. If the United States wins this Four Nations tournament, I don't know, and I might be saying something that Carter might not like. We might be starting to think that Canada may not be the best hockey country. We look at the World Juniors, how Canada has not been able to put together good teams.
Oh, okay. Let's first off stop it there. Okay, we could probably put together good teams if we knew how to pick the right players. So that's our issue with the World Junior thing. You can have that one all you want. Just shut up. Thank you. Moving on.
Move on from what?
Whatever your next topic is, let's get to it.
Well, I think I just want to say, like, I think there's going to be a lot on there is a lot on the line from that perspective. Like,
100%.
I'm not saying that the USA is a better hockey country than them. What I think
Definitely
I should have
not.
said is that
I'll put this in a way is I think that something that we're seeing is the gap between Canada and US shrinking drastically. I think that with a win in this tournament for the United States, I think that they firmly cement themselves as probably tied with Canada or just slightly below Canada as the best country in hockey right now. Because they definitely prove themselves as the best country in this tournament, but at the same time, like, there's so much talent on this Canada roster that Canada will always be hockey. Like it's never gonna. I don't think it will ever probably be US. But I can completely understand where that comes from because US has developed very good players from top all the way to bottom to goaltending. Canada, it's top all the way to bottom, and there's that gap in goaltending that is missing in Canada's game. That I think that the shift between Canada and US is what's going to be the reason why US is going to be so successful and why they're going to maybe not dominate, but why they're going to always make things close with Canada. Because if you remember, Canada would be able to smash US, right? Like these games are always close, but usually Canada gets the edge because of goaltending. And right now it looks like US has that drastic edge in goaltending. It's not a slight edge anymore like it was between, this is the Carey Price, Ryan Miller right now. But right now it's Connor Hellebuck and Jordan Binnington. The gap between has flipped from 2010 to now in 2025. So over the last 15 years, I think US has really done a great job as far as goaltending development. But I think at the same time, you also got to look that this starting goaltender for Team USA was developed in Canada. So all I'm going to say,
developed in Canada. He went to. Oh, okay. You mean he's on a Canadian team? All right.
there you go. You figured it out. Good boy.
He went to college in the United States.
I don't care. Shut up.
All right. What I meant by what I said is that I think we're going to start maybe having that conversation, is what I'm trying to say. I'm not saying that I agree with that. There are actually a lot of people who think after the back-to-back World Junior wins by the United States that the U.S. is the better hockey country and that it's our sport now. And I'm like, it's maybe we have a better future coming up, but I want to say that I think that for Canada, if they lose this tournament, there are going to be some real evaluations with Hockey Canada and the people who made this team. Because I think there were a lot of questions heading into this tournament. Even if they make the finals and even if those work out, I think if you don't win as the team that is the best hockey country, I think you have to look at your management and be like, did we make the right decisions here? Especially if Jordan Bennington's just the bed. I'm just saying. Especially if he shits the bed.
No, I completely agree. I think that honestly there is a little too much Tampa Bay bias in this one. I don't understand how you take Anthony Cirelli over Mark Scheifele. I don't understand how you take Sam Bennett over Mark Scheifele. I don't understand how you take Seth Jarvis over Mark Scheifele. I get that that's one point that you can look at and will consistently say, why was Mark Scheifele not on this team? But that's one thing that you got to look at. And then again, they literally came out and said, we are not taking Aiden Hill because we didn't like him in our thing. It should not matter whether you liked him or not. He is probably Canada's maybe best or second best goalie. And the fact that you're not taking him due to, we didn't like him, with our team, that shouldn't fucking matter. Okay? That's that'd basically be like John Tortorella coming out and saying, Austin Matthews made a cheap hit on Scott Lawton in one of our games, so we're not going to take him. I don't want that on my team. I don't want cheap shit. No, you can't just take away a player because of your own personal bias. There should not be bias when making these teams. It should be the best players in the world for your country. There should not be any bias. And the fact that we have to look at an entire line of Tampa Bay Lightning players when there are players better than Anthony Cirelli. Brandon Hagel, I can understand making this team, but there's just so many players on the Canada roster that I'm like, why was this guy not put on that roster? And I will continue to say Mark Scheifele should have been a Four Nations player because that is fucking unbelievable.
Well, going to Thompson, as you said, they didn't like Thompson or whatever and this and that. I wholeheartedly agree that Scheifele should be on Team Canada, even if you want a guy to be on your penalty kill like Anthony Cirelli. I'm still taking Mark Scheifele. What?
And
you look at it too. You only scored one goal against Connor Hellebuck. Mark Scheifele is Connor Hellebuck's teammate.
Yeah, this guy knows how to beat him, and you got one of Connor Hellebuck's teammates and Josh Morrissey. Congratulations. Imagine if you had two of them. Whoa!
Exactly.
What?
Exactly.
I don't. This whole roster, we can blame the roster construction all we want, and I will probably blame it for a while. The same way I've blamed it for Canada's horrible, not even success in the World Juniors for the last 2 years, because that has been absolutely atrocious as well. But it's kind of crazy to me that. You get a guy who's top 3 in the league in scoring and he doesn't make the team. So I don't know. I'm going to shut up about it, but yeah.
All right. We'll move on to the United States because we went into Canada for a lot there. What do you think Canada needs to do to win in the final against the U.S.?
I think it's gonna come down to kind of discipline. I think that no, I'm not gonna say discipline. I think that what it's gonna come down to is you have to play harder than Team USA. I think that you have to. I think that you need Connor McDavid to go in the corners and make hits. I think you need Nathan McKinnon to go in the corner and make hits. I think you need to do everything you can to try and piss US off because they got a lot of guys who are undisciplined on that team. And I know I said discipline's probably not going to be it, but you get a power play, and I think that you're going to be very successful. And I think that if you're able to do that, Sam Reinhart is going to be the game changer in that because I don't think Canada really had a lot of chances on the power play. I think let me quickly pull up the stats here, but realistic
how lethal that Canada power play can be. We know how lethal it can be. There should be no excuse why you shouldn't at least be scoring at least once on the power play in this game against the U.S., unless if the refs don't give you any penalties. But as you said, you gave a really good point that there are a lot of undisciplined players on Team USA. If you get Brady Tkachuk and Matthew Tkachuk off of their game, they're going to be taking penalties and they're going to be making stupid plays. So, like, I'm telling you, if you play in that way, you play physical out of the gate, you lay big hits, you maybe you do the additional jab here and there, and, you try and get them, like all worked up, that will help you dramatically. And I think there are a lot of players on this team who, if you can get them off their game, they're not that useful. So, Carter, you wanted to say some stats? What do you got?
Yeah, like Canada, like they had 2 power plays, and to beat USA and to beat Connor Hellebuck, that's not going to be enough. I understand that they didn't score on said power plays, and I think that that's your mistake. Is when you get the power plays against Team USA and you have the man advantage and you are in their zone for 2 minutes, you have to score. So power play is going to be the biggest thing, and I think that you have all this talent, but I think that really their biggest point, I think, is going to have to be Sam Reinhart, who's going to be in the slot, who's going to be in that spot where if you can get it to him, he doesn't miss from that spot often.
Yep.
He doesn't miss from that spot often, especially a shot from the slot, one-timer that's a little bit cross crease. That's something that you're going to have to capitalize on, and I think that that's going to happen. And another thing, there's so much speed on this team. McKinnon, McDavid, like that's 2 guys who are absolute speedsters. No one on Team USA can catch them. Yeah, no one. Exactly. You also have a backward skating speedster in Cale Makar. Like, you have to capitalize on your speed, and that's how we got our goal, right? McDavid with speed comes in, beats Hellebuck short side on the backhand, right? You gotta get as many breakaway chances as you can and capitalize. It's easier said than done. But realistically, I think this game's going to come down to power plays. It's going to come down to wanting it more than Team USA because they are going to hit you and you got to hit them back because realistically, they're probably not going to like that very much. So play with passion, make some hits, and you need your star players to lay the boom. And Sam Reinhart, if Canada gets a lot of power plays, I'd like Sam Reinhart to get 1 or 2.
I agree. I think my takeaways: shoot the puck when you can shoot it. Don't try and pass. You got to get shots on Hellebuck, no matter how many they are, no matter where they're from. Honestly, you need shots on Hellebuck. That being said, I did say no matter where they are, you need to get high danger chances. Again, a lot of the shots that they had against the United States were from the point. They were from the outside. You aren't winning if those are where your shots are coming from. You aren't. Plain and simple. Hellebuck is going to make that save almost every time. Unless if he becomes playoff Hellebuck, like he's making that save every damn time. So, I agree with that. Again, I said my 2 pieces on Jordan Binnington and how I think that I don't trust him. He better have the game of his life. That's all I'm going to say. He better have the game of his life on Thursday. Let's move over to the United States because there's a lot of questions of who exactly is even going to be playing for this United States team, and it's going to be interesting to see what is coming next moving forward for them because Quinn Hughes might be apparently playing in this tournament for some strange reason. It doesn't look like he will, but it's still up in the air as of right now. So we did get some confirmation today that Charlie McAvoy will not play in the finals, which is a big blow for the United States because, again, we said that McAvoy played very well in that game against Canada. He laid the hits on McDavid and Crosby and made some very key plays despite, allowing the one goal that he caused. But again, I think that he is a very high impact player and he's going to be missed 100%. Also, I do want to say for Boston, it's a big disadvantage too because a guy like McAvoy, he's going to be week to week and the Bruins are out of a playoff spot as of right now. So that's a rough thing there. You got any thoughts on McAvoy?
Yeah, I mean, that's a huge... What's up?
I'd say anything. What?
Oh, okay. I just started my move. It's definitely a huge blow. I think, especially to Team USA and to the Boston Bruins, because I think Charlie McAvoy is probably their second best defenseman on Team USA.
On Team USA, 100%.
I'd say so for sure. And I think that
the best.
Yeah, he's exactly who Team USA wants on their team. I think he's the back end Brady Tkachuk, Matthew Tkachuk, who's gonna throw some hits around, who's gonna get you points. So it's definitely a huge loss for Team USA, but definitely a big boost for Team Canada, knowing that he's not going to be able to play. I think that definitely helps Canada out. And then as far as for Quinn Hughes.
He's not playing. I don't think.
No,
I don't think
there's no chance. I don't think so. Unless somehow there is a last second injury in a practice tomorrow, which if that happens, I am going to be calling bullshit.
Oh, oh my God! Canada might have a meltdown if that happens.
Dude, we would riot. I would riot for sure.
Adam Fox seen being huddled off the ice after being hit by Matthew Tkachuk in practice. Oh my God.
Yeah, so that would not be a fun one. But if it happens, it happens, and so be it. But I don't think he's gonna play.
That's not gonna happen. Quinn Hughes is not playing unless if we really see something big there. I think the Canucks have to go to Boston anyways, or be around that area for a trip because it said he was with Vancouver. He was at Vancouver in practice, so I don't know. Maybe he was near them or something, but who knows? Again, going back to the United States, though, it looks like Matthews is playing. It looks like both the Tkachuk brothers are playing as well, so they're okay on the forward core. It seems like all of them are going to play. There was some worry though against Sweden, which again, what's funny is I'll get so stupid comments all the time on my videos, but I got a comment I have to read it. It's just so bad. It's definitely from a Swede that said it. It is actually so bad. So let me pull it up here real quick. So this guy commented on my one video saying, quote, Sweden is clearly the best. 2 overtime losses. That's it. Was in the game for all the games. Sweden is the second most successful team of all time. What? Are we serious right now?
Crazy.
What a freaking joke. You're going to say that after the U.S. rested half of their roster and Hellebuck didn't even play. What are we? Seriously? You got heavily outshot, too. Are we dead ass right now? But, yeah, again, I'm not really worried about that game. I said that on my TikTok. Yeah, I mean, not a lot here on the U.S. I think they just have to play the way we know they can play. Play the way that you played against Canada, but you also got to be adjusted to it. You have to adjust your game if Canada comes out of the bat and plays your way. You have to adjust to their game and play in a different style than maybe what you're usually used to and what you did against them. But again, my biggest thing is don't give Canada space either. You got to be very mindful defensively. I know you have a really good goalie in net, but you also have some very talented players. You also have some very talented players who are, on the other end for Canada. So again, I think for the U.S., just got to play your way. You got to play the way you know you can. Carter, what do you think the USA has to do to win? Just play their way?
Yeah, I think that if they play exactly how they played against Canada, the first time around. I think that they will win. And then another thing is, I think that they just got to shoot on Binnington. I think that he's going to mess something up. Something's going to happen, and you just got to put the puck in the back of the net when you can. And I think that they'll be able to do that pretty easily if they shoot the puck a lot. And you get in Canada's head and get their star players rattled and out of this game, you're gonna succeed, no problem.
Well, the same can be said for the United States. Just keep a level head, stay disciplined. If Canada comes out and pisses you off right away, don't be going crazy. I don't think we're gonna see fights off the draw again. No. I don't think so for a championship game. I just highly doubt it. But I've seen crazier things before, I guess. But overall, I do think that we're going to see a way more conservative tournament. It's going to be a pretty wild and fierce battle for sure. So I don't know. We'll have to see what comes next. But that's our preview of the final. About 40 minutes long there. We went into there a little bit. Again, I knew it was going to be a longer one. Carter, any final thoughts on the final game? Anything else you want to add?
No, I got nothing. But if Canada loses, I'm going to be pretty depressed.
We haven't come up with your punishment yet, so we gotta figure that out.
I thought you guys did. You should.
I don't want to hear you say, "Oh, because Jack hasn't done his yet." No, screw that. Because I'm going to be doing mine. I'm going to be doing our punishment.
Yeah, well, Jack still has to do it. So.
Well, what if I do it? If I do my punishment, then you have to do yours. I'll drink maple syrup. I'll literally go to the store with my girlfriend on Friday and get the syrup and do it on a video and post it on the Instagram.
Okay.
And what will you do? What will you do? Just go eat a burger? Because that's American food?
Classic.
I don't know what else. I really don't know what to give you as your punishment. I've been thinking about it like the last week, but I just don't know. Like, what is an American thing that I could have you do? Go buy a gun? Like, I don't know. Anyways, that being said, we're going to be done with that. I'm going to transition to an interview that I did individually. Actually, I did 2 interviews in this episode individually. I have one with the Reading Royals broadcaster of the ECHL, Erik Jesberger. He is a local guy of mine. I've known him for quite a bit, being around the Royals and doing some stuff with them and, talking to him a lot. I've gotten to know him pretty well, and I was able to bring him on the podcast here and talk a little bit about his journey and his overall career. When we get back, though, we're going to get into rumors and other things around the NHL, and then we got another interview, and then we'll wrap. But I'm going to ship it over there right away. Let's talk to Erik Jesberger, the broadcaster of the Reading Royals. We are pleased to be joined here today with a little bit of a different guest on our episode here. We have a Temple graduate and also graduate of a rival high school, which we're going to have to get into a little bit. The broadcaster and media relations of the Reading Royals. We have Erik Jesberger joining us here today. Erik, how are you? Thanks for tuning in.
Doing well, Evan. Thanks for the time and always happy to chat. Definitely looking forward to being on the other side of some interviews once in a while, and this one looking forward to. Excited.
Love it. So, you have a little bit of a different story than a lot of the people that we've brought on. You originally didn't really start off as a hockey broadcaster. Is that correct? You actually started off, working for your local school radio and school broadcasting. So kind of take us how did you get inspired into doing that? And also, were you initially a hockey fan, or did the hockey part just kind of come later?
I'd start off with the fact that it was always Flyers, the Phillies, big for me growing up. So it was always at Citizens Bank Park or at the Wells Fargo Center, Wachovia, Center, of course, a little bit as well. And growing up a Flyers and a Phillies fan, was always infatuated with those two sports growing up. I'd say baseball was the sport in which I played the most, starting since I was the age of 4 and all the way through high school. But definitely the enjoyment in what hockey was, playing outside on the driveway, pick up with the neighbors. So it was always that second sport that I was always drawn to. And then when it came to playing, NHL 12 was always a big game along with MLB The Show. So those two were hand in hand on the switch. But when it came to hockey and the time to step into a media sense position, definitely get a chance to cover North Penn High School hockey. I know for you, Penn Ridge. So we got a little bit of history there in some of the Flyers Cups, and always enjoyed getting a chance to be a part of the game in that sense. We didn't have TV and radio in our coverage of high school hockey. So while I was able to do the morning news updates, be a part of the Friday Night Lights broadcasts at North Penn High School for NPTV, and then the hoops as well. Never hockey, but I was able to do the journalism side. And that's something I kind of bring to the table with those press releases. So a lot of the writing and covering. Absolutely blessed to be here with the Royals and getting a chance to take what I was learning pen and paper at North Penn now into the broadcast booth on the headset here with the Royals.
Now, when you were starting out, was there somebody who like really inspired you to get into, obviously doing what you do today? Was it a hockey broadcaster? Was it somebody else? Who kind of inspired you to do what you do today?
I'd say for me as a Flyers fan, of course, you can't go any highly without hearing Jim Jackson, but my dad, who always was playing the beer league hockey, so able to go with him to a couple of games, and he was a goalie, but always was instilled the Gene Hart in me from an early age. And the Gene Hart tie into every Flyers great call growing up and a part of my dad's childhood. He made sure to put that to me as well early. And of course, Doc Emmerich. So the national broadcasts, you can't go anywhere without those Winter Classics and seeing the Flyers and the Rangers down the bank. That was always something big for me growing up. And then just taking what Jim Jackson, blessed to get a chance to speak with him a couple of times and attend a Mark Zumoff class, of course, the great voice of the Philadelphia 76ers, and was absolutely fortunate to be a part of his first class teaching at Temple University. So that all helped me, and those idols within Philly sports, as well as the national network, of course, with the great Doc Emmerich, all kind of trended into the style. And of course, I like to bring energy to my call, but you got a chance to tie in a little bit of what they have as well. And I'm glad to get a chance to bring it here today.
So when you did your first broadcast with North Penn TV, do you remember, first off, you were probably the same age as me, around 15, 16, 17 possibly. Do you remember what your first time was like? Were you absolutely terrified, or were you no, I'm ready to go, and went right into it running?
So what's funny is the first sport I had the pleasure of calling was field hockey. So, right along the same lines, just on the turf, but the same energy of a kind of goal call was my very first time. I was a kid with a big spiked up hair and a Hollister sweatshirt on. And we changed that to the suit and tie pretty quick. But getting that out of the way early of talking to people on air and making it part of a sport that I was familiar with in sense of hockey, but just a different surface, kind of settled in. And from that point on, hopping into the booth for the football, that's always big back at North Penn, and then taking the coverage from the pen and paper for hockey, made the transition here to the headset for hockey games pretty smooth, and I'm glad to have that experience there from a young age there as I would say probably freshman, and at North Penn that's 9th grade. So that's probably when it would have started.
So you graduated from North Penn in 2020, right?
That's correct. Yeah.
God bless you for graduating that insane time. You ended up going to Klein Media College and then Temple University. What kind of made you choose those two places to study at moving forward?
For Temple in particular, it was a visit we had as the high schools get a chance to put forth their best product to a Natus Emmy Award. So to win a national, mid-region, mid-Atlantic recognized on-air talent for myself with North Penn High School being at Temple where the awards was held, the right people was able to come present it to me, and I was able to, get their ear and hear about what Temple had featured. And you can't beat the fact that you're a train ride away from Center City and getting down to South Philly for any kind of Philadelphia sports event. So those initial media draws as a Philly 4-for-4 fan growing up, you can't beat that. But then adding in the elements of what the hockey coverage was, which was strictly the Temple Ice Hockey Network on YouTube, and with Dylan Coyle, who my predecessor brought me on, and I'm glad he's doing incredibly well with NASCAR. He's the one who had me as the first call for an intern, and that's where I was able to step in with the Royals in the 21-22 season. And glad to get a chance to come in here and take the reins. But it really started there with Temple.
Do you have any like really good stories from your time there, like calling games, and some like maybe funny moments that you had on the air? Because even though like you've still been doing it for a while before then in high school, you were still a little bit new to those kind of things. So do you have any like funny moments or like really good stories from your time there?
I'd say what was really awesome about my time at the Temple Ice Hockey Network and the YouTube coverage, it wasn't Temple club hockey being covered because, as you had mentioned, when I came in 2020, it was still some no restrictions and there wasn't any club hockey going on. So the Temple Ice Hockey Network actually got the pickup and the tip of the cap to start covering the local prep schools in the Flyers Cup. So I was able to be on the headset, also be kind of a rinkside reporter for Malvern Prep, St. Joe's Prep, Holy Ghost, and a lot of high-quality hockey. So being down for an ice level for the first time, a couple stories we can't share on air because things got quite trippy between Holy Ghost and Malvern Prep, but some of the best hockey. Of course, covering stuff at North Penn and the CB South rivalries. Penn Ridge, I know they've gotten better, but during my time there, Penn Ridge was still one of those teams that, well, made it easy night for me to cover because North Penn would handle them. But it was those games that was always was always awesome because I know the student sections, they brought the energy and a lot of stuff maybe off the mic we can talk about, but those are some of the fond memories. Just showed how passionate local hockey is in the Flyers Cup, which I know a couple players, Austin Master here with the Reading Royals is familiar with. So get a chance to catch up with him once in a while and talk about those days with him, with LaSalle. Just as good as a team to mention along that prep school path is really awesome.
Yeah, believe me, I have seen all of the things that you have probably seen in the Flyers Cup games.
We can paint a picture.
By the way, we won 2 state championships, and North Penn did it. So, just want to.
You're right. I am saying though, Flyers Cup that year got cut short, unfortunately.
Yeah. Well, you guys actually have our number this year. Like we lost all of our really good seniors, and you guys have beaten us both times this season. So,
trending our way.
Anyways, coming out of Temple, you were there for 4 years, right?
Correct.
3 years?
Yeah.
So, how did you get the gig with the Royals initially? I know you didn't start out like right away as the director of broadcasting and all that, but kind of how did you get your foot in the door with the team?
Yeah, everything from my time as a asynchronous student that first year, which was all virtual for myself and all my high school buddies, that we get a chance to get a room, a house our sophomore year. During that full asynchronous, WHIP radio is the Temple student-run radio station, and that was, while we weren't covering the sports, we were doing weekly shows, so similar to this kind of over the airwaves of a 45 to hour-long show, and getting that experience from the get-go, and that was all talking about Philly sports and Temple sports was really helpful. But at the same time, I was really intrigued to learn more about what this Temple Ice Hockey Network was about. And while it was all on YouTube and there wasn't any club hockey going on, it was, as I mentioned, Dylan Coyle was the one who was the broadcaster before myself here with the Royals. And when he was the director of really the entirety of the Temple Ice Hockey Network, that's where I was able to get in contact with him and learn more about what offerings they had, and that was that entire club hockey season and covering the Flyers Cup. So I was in a mix of handling graphics, handling a bit of the director's side of the broadcast, getting on the headset for play-by-play, as well as color. So I kind of said, I'll be there, and I paid thanks to my parents and my dad driving back to his old stomping grounds at Grundy Ice Arena, and making those long trips, and just allowing me to be wherever the broadcast was happening. And the class of 1923 arena was my first visit to there, and also joining in the Flyers Cup coverage. That's down in Philly. So from a Lansdale kid, that's a decent hike, and a big thanks to my parents who made that possible, and for Dylan saying, yeah, come on, and kind of taking me under his wing. Then when it came time, when he got the position with the Royals and a call over the summer saying I could use an intern, I was right away saying absolutely.
Have you ever played hockey? Like ever played ice at all?
So it was all baseball. All the Flyers, on the TV. I had every Flyers sweatshirt and sweater in the closet, but it was whether it's on the pond a couple times back home, as well as on the rollerblades out in the street. There's a lot of the pickup hockey that I played, but always infatuated with covering the sport, learning a lot from the North Penn hockey team. Of course, you got English and math with some of the players, but also the head coach with North Penn and Kevin Vadis was always willing to answer questions, not just about the team, but some of the intricates about the game that I'm happy to take into my coverage more and more as one who was on the baseball diamond in the spring, but right there at Hatfield Ice in the winter.
Yeah, you brought up a little bit of PTSD, so that's why I had to ask that question. I got a concussion at Grundy one time. Yeah, not a fun night. So it is a very long drive as well, especially from even from where you are. Like you're right by me, so you know how it is. Like it is brutal. So when you first got to Reading and worked for the Royals, what was the intern position that you worked under, and what was like your first impression when you got to the arena and was like, wow, like this is crazy. Like what was your first impression?
So as the media relations intern was just that position with Dylan and working more of the highlights, cutting the stuff that I get some help with as well for the Twitter coverage and doing a little bit of the pregame and the postgame press releases. That was some of the early responsibilities. But the first impression was electric because the arena was packed and it was that first home opening weekend. Royals are coming fresh off of an overtime game against the Norfolk Admirals and able to get back at them the next night was awesome. And that team, you're looking back on what that first impression was in terms of talent. Trevor Gooch, Braden Lowe, Patrick Bykov, and so on, and Carlos Domenko for a cup of coffee. In my time as the play-by-play broadcaster as well that season, it was as you look at the record book, was a top team. So it was as good as an impression as you could get as a kid stepping in as a hockey fan and now getting a chance to get to a position within the field, and was awesome. And the crowd from day one, super welcoming to me. And I'm glad that carries to today because the big family out here, and glad to call a lot of these fans some family, and that's super awesome.
So when you were coming out of that intern and you got promoted to the director of communications and then later on the media relations manager and all that, how did that happen? Like, take us through, whether you got a call or you got called into the office. Like, how did that kind of happen in a way?
Yeah. So that whole position came together with Dylan getting his next role. Was a bit of a tryout weekend, I like to call it. And the best part of the tryout weekend was the Royals were hosting a team named the Trois-Rivières Lions. And from the first time I saw Trois-Rivières on a piece of paper, you could guess I didn't say Trois-Rivières. So right off the bat, we were getting thrown to the fire. And I love that because getting downstairs and hoping somebody within the organization and the staff for the Lions was able to speak some English, and of course they were. But at the time, they were kind of joking me at first, saying and speaking in French. I wish I took more French in middle school and high school. But that was the first weekend I was able to put on the headset for play-by-play. Fortunately, Dylan as well gave me a period or two for play-by-play in his time as the play-by-play broadcaster. But I wouldn't be here without the assistance, the blessing of the great Pat Richards being right there beside me for that full season, and having him as just that encyclopedia and that Royals record book to go along with the broadcast, give that insight that as me just watching it through the screen and cutting highlights through all season, not being able to be there on site for all those road games and here for every home game as well with that, because I was still in school down at Temple. That was super fortunate to have and allowed me to settle in, kind of just focus on the play-by-play. I was born a month before the team began, so there was definitely a lot of catch-up to do in the record book. And Pat Richards, I know, is doing incredibly well. Stay in touch with him quite frequently, and he was incredible to have for that year. And I know for all the fans, the grace they give to him, he gives it right back. And can't thank him enough for that.
So was that like tryout week? That was in Trois-Rivières, right? Was that like your first road trip that you did with the Royals?
So with the Trois-Rivières Lions, they were actually here. So I was able to do everything here for the games. So yeah, sorry for that mix-up. When with Trois-Rivières in town was helpful because my parents came out for that weekend just to watch the game. And next thing you know, we were kind of going through some employee papers and seeing what was coming to fruition of a dream come true. And super thankful for team president David Farrar, VP of Operations Dakota Prosick, who came upstairs. And what was really cool moment was after the first period, it was talked about being, we'll see how this weekend goes with Saturday and Sunday games. Was awesome to have David come up to the broadcast booth and hand me the employee papers after the first period. That kind of settled in, and I knew that this is going to be a new place to be and something to build upon. It was just scratching the surface, and glad to be here today.
Wow, he brought you those papers mid-game?
That certainly was. You can imagine the heart was racing throughout the entire broadcast, and then to get that moment of this is surreal during the period was pretty cool.
That's awesome. So that being said, what was your first road trip like with the Royals? You know, like you obviously a couple of times every year you'll travel to the team. Like this past weekend, you went out to Wheeling and commentated the team there. What was your first road trip with the team to a different city like?
Yeah, and I will say, can't get better than going down south. So we went down to Virginia, and the Royals had 3 games in 4 days against the Norfolk Admirals, and this was in April of last season. So for those who are tuning in or are not familiar with what the ECHL is, it is AA hockey, and it is a business. So for the road trips, the team handles the coverage of the hospitals, or not the hospital, hotels, and the meals. And for me as a broadcaster, it also includes some positions with marketing, social media, community relations, and appearances around Berks County. So the team's on the road. I'm kind of spearheading what can we do locally here in Berks County, while for the games I cover them on a desktop remotely. So that is through the advancements of Flow Sports and the coverage. It makes the away broadcast possible to be on site back at home. So I'm always fortunate to get on the road when I can. I'm always looking to get on the road. That's always something. You can't beat that in-person action. But for a lot of the coverage was just kind of put in place before I began, in that the broadcaster would be remote for the away games and, of course, on site for the home games. But then what can I do with that? I take advantage of some of the community outreach and traveling around with Slapshot to some of the local libraries, hospitals, and making sure we can push tickets for those home games going forward. If there's anything I can share, it's that you're a broadcaster in one sense, but you're a salesman in the other. You know, you're pushing tickets and pushing the best brand that is Royals hockey to people who may not be familiar with the team. So that's always something important to bring to the table as well.
Love it. So going into some like basic broadcast questions, who is your favorite player you've been able to interview over the years? It doesn't have to be role specific, but who is one that you just love? Maybe you can't even give one, because I know I can't really give one. And I've interviewed like very few people. So,
well, I can't go without giving the roses to Jacob Gaucher, and to have not just the chance to speak with him before, of course, his NHL contract and his Philadelphia Flyers debut and the 38th Royal, to make a debut with it in the NHL was super awesome to see. That all kind of come full circle in a moment for myself. So he, of course, is up there. But I will say he can't beat the first couple interviews I had as a young buck here in Reading. And Braden Lowe was one of the first I spoke to. Of course, a fan favorite, and one who wore that number 9 as good as you could ask, and is still continuing to do so down in Orlando. To see that also come back together when the Solar Bears came back to town late last season for those 2 final games right here at Santander Arena, kind of brought back those memories, and for him to kind of walk back some of those old paths as well with me was pretty cool. And to see the advancements of where it's gone, he said he kept up with the coverages, and he still, of course, keeps tabs with Reading, and with that, a lot of the highlights that I was on, and he enjoyed stuff, and he's continuing to crush it down in Orlando, but I'm jealous of that weather for sure with Braden Lowe.
Oh, we all are, believe me. I'm sure you're very happy with Nardi coming back as of a couple of weeks ago. I'm sure you're very happy with that. Was here last year, led the team in scoring. I'm sure you were thrilled about that when he came down.
Yeah, the same kind of conversation when he hopped on the bus, and the first time I was able to see him and was able to get overseas for him to begin this season and then rejoin the Royals here this year was awesome. And him hopping on the bus, getting set to go out to Wheeling. A quick what's going on, Burger, and I'm glad he's doing well, and it was great to see him get put right back onto the ice in the first line. Yeah, beat that. Get those legs loose.
Oh, yeah. What is your favorite event you've had the privilege of attending or working since coming with the Royals? For example, like, you went to the Flyers rookie games. I think even went to the Phantoms playoffs. Like, what is some of like your favorite event that you've had the privilege to go to and work or?
Yeah, I'd say the Flyers rookie series, seeing the best prospects within the Philadelphia Flyers and the New York Rangers organizations was really awesome. And as well, at the same time, to have a lot of those players end up in Royal sweaters to begin this year and already have that relationship built and understanding what their play style was, and to bring that then to the broadcast here to try and provide that to our fans from the starting point of what these players are going to be. And you've seen that come together this year with a lot of great talent. Was really awesome. And one of the cooler moments, and kind of goes back to the Jacob Gaucher tie-in, was being, as you mentioned, Evan, the Phantoms playoff games and going into what was that series clinching overtime goal from Jacob Gaucher for the Phantoms to advance ahead of the Wilkes-Barre Scranton Penguins. I was up there in attendance to interview Jacob Gaucher, regardless of the result. Well, lo and behold, he ends up being the overtime game-winning goal scorer. I was jubilant just at the fact that not only was it a former Royal scoring that goal, and we could get that shared on the social media pages, but I already had a conversation lined up with him downstairs, so made the first couple questions quite easy because it was just tell me about the moments, tell me about where your head at is right now, because you are the man of the hour, and was not only great to catch up with him, just an outstanding individual both on and off the ice, and well-deserving of everything he's been given so far in his young and certainly flourishing hockey career. But to see that moment come together, I was saying somebody was looking out for me here, and made this possible. So that's within hockey. But one more I can't go without mentioning is the coolest and maybe the most rewarding moment within the Royals organization is to get out to the teddy bear drop-off for a second straight year at the St. Luke's Children's Hospital in Bethlehem, being a part of those visits as a community relations manager, bringing along the players, Slapshot, and to provide some holiday cheer during a tough time of the season for these families and these kids. Makes it rewarding to see it from one who helps put it together, but just providing so much more than those teddy bears. It's a lot of cheer, and thanks to all the fans who contribute those bears that they find their way to a great home, and one of the best moments I've been a part of.
That's wonderful. Is there any specific call or play that you've commentated that is by far your favorite? You still think about it to this day, or wow, I'll never get better than that. Do you have a call that's like that, or do you have, is every call like that to you?
Well, I will say I'm always trying to sharpen and fine-tune the craft. So I know that there are still calls that I was still working on developing, and of course the goal call can only get better. The overtime calls are always electric, and for Matt Brown, he's given me two already in his time as a Royal. Darren Brady with some electric ones last year as well. And to mention that first road trip for myself, a part of a professional hockey team, was down to Norfolk, Virginia. That first game was a overtime game-winning goal from Darren Brady. So to be the only one cheering in the building was something new for me, because on site down at the Norfolk Scope Arena, a lot of people around me weren't happy, but I was, going with it on an awesome night and a great game for Brady in that Royals win in this first of 3 games in 4 days against the Admirals, and able to have that day off after that was pretty cool down in Virginia to get the highlight pushed out and also take the time to connect with the guys a bit more on the road was something really rewarding. But hopefully we got some pretty good calls in the bank going forward for some playoff hockey, and be able to be on the call for a Game 7 in my first couple months as a professional hockey broadcaster, and that unfortunate final result, but still can't get better than the best two words in sports, and that's Game 7, Royals and Growlers back in the 2022 Kelly Cup playoffs. That's pretty awesome. So hopefully we got some more calls coming forward here.
Against Captain Todd Skirving. Oh, my gosh.
The enemy, now the ally.
So just kind of like advice for like other commentators, like if you possibly like mess up or like, like say something like, bad on air or like mess up on air, how do you kind of like recover from that? Do you kind of just like move on, or like, like kind of what goes through your head with that? Because I know there's a lot of other like broadcasters and commentators who like aspire to do what you do and what others do. So like kind of what is your advice to them with that?
I'd say we're all human first and foremost. So there's always going to be, unless you're at the NHL level, you got to, drop button for a cough. It might come over the air. I'd say that always in your preparation, just continuing to keep at it, keep the mouth loose, and making sure that we're continuing to drink water is always big, because that's going to help your voice. That's the moneymaker. But in terms of stuff on the air, stumbling, stuttering, it's happened to me on this call. It just comes with it, and trying to slow down the moment best you can. But also it happens. So just continuing to go with it. Don't always feel like you have to ignore it. You can address it and you can play along with it. That comes with some comfortability, and making sure that you are just being transparent with your audience. You're not trying to be any fake person or trying to be somebody like an idol. You're being yourself. And of course, it's wonderful to take some things from some of the great broadcasters. I love to tie in Spear Down from the great Doc Emmerich. You can't go without, some of the best without trying to be, in a way, a replicant of that. But you don't have to take it all. You can be your own style. So going with the moment, don't always feel like you have to tense up and try and push past it. Sometimes it's that connection to the fans and those listeners that come together in those moments. And it's something that you can laugh about and enjoy. And just being yourself and being natural the best you can.
I love that. And that being said, do you have any like funny or awkward moment that you had with like a player or a coach while you're doing interviews? Because I'm sure even early on, like, I have had mess ups myself or really awkward moments talking to players. So has there been any of those for you that kind of like really stand out?
What's funny is I had of course, the captain, Todd Skirving, on the broadcast last weekend. And at one point, the broadcast was going through the notes and kind of got caught up within the action of the notes. And that's something you got to kind of catch yourself. And I'm still, developing, is calling the action versus trying to tie in that note that you put, your time into digging and finding. And caught up in the action, kind of slowed up and was caught up in the middle of going through the note and making sure we hit that point versus what was on the ice. And Todd kind of gave me, a bit of a bump and was like, "Come on, Berger, get it going." Go in. That was probably the funniest moment on a broadcast with a player, just because he's so quick and he's also to have a part of the play. And that's where I was pushing right back at him, saying, "This is where the color commentator comes in and fills the moment, allows the play-by-play guy to catch up." So that's all in good fun. And with Todd, of course, being wonderful on the ice, he's been great to have in the booth for a handful of games this season. Provide that insight and those intricates that I can't have from up here in the booth. Of course, being one who was just on the ice a couple weeks ago, only grows the broadcast and hopefully makes everything for the listeners that much better, as I imagine.
So how do you handle, like really unexpected moments? Like, let's say like, there's a technical difficulty, like, in the booth, or maybe there's a controversial call on the ice. Kind of how do you handle that as, the commentator?
Yeah, I think one thing that's really big, and that's a great thing you bring up, Evan, because there is, in terms of plays, it's best not to assume. Go with what you're seeing. You are, after all, the play-by-play guy. You're just painting the picture of what you see. If a call isn't exactly set, or if there is question, talk about how the officials are coming together, or are they still having a conversation? Is there still word between Binkley on the bench and a referee? Is there still some question from the players on the ice? What are they doing? Are they showing some perplexed animation? You can go with that rather than assuming what the call you believe is, if it's not set yet. So I would say trying to avoid assuming as much as possible, just because then if you do say it and it's wrong, then you don't have to retract back that statement or say, pivot off of what was seen on the ice. Because at the end of the day, you're not down at ice level. You're not seeing what exactly the officials or coach or the players are seeing at the same time. You're just the guy relaying the message, if you will. So in terms of plays on the ice and those questionable moments, it is best not to assume. And that goes for the same on calls. What's the beauty about this sport is there's so much traffic in front is that you don't ever ultimately see what happens. And then you go to, once again, as I mentioned, with a lot of the remote broadcasts, you're just looking at it on a screen. You're seeing exactly what the viewers are seeing. So you're doing your best to pick up on who leads the fist bump line, who would be the first into the pile on the celebration. But that's not to assume when you don't have to. And that's where you can just take your context clues, what you're seeing on the ice. But with this moment and the AA hockey level, it's a lot of these milestone goals and the first professional career goals for some of these players. So I made sure to kind of get on my head early that, making sure we're making sure these moments are the best for these players because they're going to be ones played throughout their families, their friends, and making sure you have that exact first goal call right for these guys scoring their first as a pro is big.
Wow, that's really good advice. Thank you. What is your go-to signature phrase or signature call that you do in the booth? Because I know there's a lot of different ones, and everybody has ones that they love to say and love to do. So, what are yours?
I would always say I'm always continuing to develop it. I do my best not to repeat, but hopefully, plenty of goal calls throughout a night. I'm a big fan of if you can get a goaltender absolutely undressed. I love to tie in the local area, whether that might be here at Berks County with Penn Street outside of the Schuylkill River. I love to say the opposing goaltender just got taken out to the Schuylkill. And if that can paint the picture for a goaltender getting absolutely taken out of his crease and Matt Brown pulled off some Matt Brown magic, that certainly is something enjoyable for. I know the fans have definitely chimed in on a couple of those mentions. But as one who grew up a big Flyers and Phillies fan, along with that, my dad being a historical reenactor and being one who does lectures and programs for history and library schools all growing up, I would join him for that. I'd say that's where I got my public speaking, fear punched out of me right away. Being one who's very intrigued with history, I'd like to tie that in as well to the beginning of my calls, the intro, where we're coming in from. So Massachusetts, being in Worcester, that's only a couple hours away from Lexington and Concord. We tie in that with the Revolutionary War and history attributes, and love to bring that into the calls as well with some rifles and fires and making sure to paint that picture best I can.
What is a perk or benefit that came with you coming in as the broadcaster and the relations manager that you never realized you were going to get when you came in?
That's a great question because the first thing that comes to mind is the relationships built with the fans and with a lot of these people that I love to call second family out here. As we kind of started off the show with being one from Lanesdale, going to North Penn High School, then Temple. I was always an hour outside of Berks County, and Berks was something new for me when beginning as an intern and getting ingrained right into the team. I was seemingly right ingrained into a new family out here, and whether it's the Radio Recon live show audience that always comes out to see me and hear what we have to say with coach and a player for those Tuesday nights all throughout the winter and the treacherous weather. Along with that, being able to build some relationships with even the people right here around the booth and out on the concourse for our pregame shows. That is certainly the best part and the most rewarding part I've had so far in my time as a broadcaster with the Reading Royals.
Oh, awesome. So, what is your favorite theme night that the Royals have done in the time that you've been there? You mentioned Teddy Bear Toss. You got Pig at the Rink coming up on Saturday. What is your favorite theme night that they do, if you can even pick one?
Yeah, it's tough to pick one. And the Teddy Bear Toss is always electric to call. Being a part of that as well, describing not just the goal, but describing the environment that it lends to after, and all going towards such a great cause for the community that I get a chance to be a part of as well is rewarding. But because you said that, I'll go with another answer to tie that in. As one who grew up as a big Star Wars fan, you can't get better than Star Wars night in a Darth Maul themed jersey as favorite character growing up. And one of my two younger sisters, the oldest of the two, is actually down in the Disney College program. So she is carrying on the Star Wars love and kind of poking fun whenever she's on a ride. And next thing you know, she's at Huff. So as a Star Wars fan growing up, it was really cool to be part of that first Star Wars night. The characters around the arena even got up here near my broadcast booth. I was in the black and red, so I was on the good side when the Stormtroopers came by. But Star Wars is definitely a big night for myself and my family when they come out to the games.
Yeah, it's always a great night, especially seeing all the people walking around and all that. My girlfriend was terrified of that Chewbacca. That thing was, oh man, that was scary.
He was legit. Emil Schrenard gets the nickname Chewie, standing at 6'5", 6'6" from the team, and Chewbacca was, he had a couple inches on him, but Schrenard gives him a good run. He tries to catch him.
Yeah. So one more question for you before I let you go. So talking future, I know you are very happy with what you do right now with the Royals, but maybe let's say 10 years down the road, 15 years down the road, could you see yourself maybe working at like a higher level, like the AHL, NHL? Like, could you see yourself working at a higher level than the East Coast or the ECHL?
If I can be one who can carry on the Reading Royals name and have this be a home for now and be on the broadcast for an NHL team, that would be the dream. And I hope that just in the same way these players try to work their way up to the NHL level, and myself try and do the same, it's as well carry on the organization that has done so much, and this franchise that has been so ingrained within the National Hockey League level, both within the immense goaltenders that have found their way, and another tip of the cap to Jonathan Quick on 400 NHL career wins. And writing up that press release as a big fan of Jonathan Quick growing up was pretty awesome myself. It would be that same end goal, and being a part of hockey and understanding where I began. Reading would never leave me, and hopefully can find my way into the NHL broadcast booth at some point and be a part of what the Royals franchise has always been, and that's carrying on excellence. And for myself, hopefully it can be a testament to that.
But never forget where you got your real break.
Absolutely. Well,
we appreciate your time, Erik. Before you go, is there anything that you want to plug, anything you want to promote that's going on with the Royals in this upcoming weekend?
In terms of the Royals, of course, this Saturday, Pink in the Rink game. Hopefully everybody can come out and join us. And for myself, I did want to take the moment and shout out you, Evan. You've done a lot of great work, and as just a high school student, for me, it was working for, as I mentioned, North Bend High School and a lot of the journalism side. There wasn't TikTok. There wasn't a lot of those solid videos for me in that time, but you've done a great job carrying by the reins, not just giving some Royals coverage, and grateful to be with you on this show today, but a lot of wonderful work for National Hockey League coverage as well. So I know we got a chance to talk a bit about having you a part of some of the coverage here with the Royals, and hopefully can make that happen, because it was the same way I began, and hopefully we can make that happen and give it back and get you going for it as well.
Well, thank you, Erik. I really do appreciate that.
Yeah.
And I'll see you at the rink very, very soon.
Love that. And glad to see everybody hopefully this Saturday. And a lot of hockey still to go, a lot of home games to go as well in the schedule. So excited for all that going forward.
Oh, yeah. You have all of March is literally just 12 straight home games. It's actually insane.
I got a sleeping bag right here in the broadcast booth for me. I'm not going to go anywhere.
That's awesome. Thank you so much to Erik Jesberger for joining us on the podcast. Great interview. Great guy. Definitely somebody who we may be seeing more on the podcast in the future for sure. But Moving out of that interview and the overall ECHL, I know that was a weird place to put that interview in, but I've been wanting to share it for a while. Let's get into some NHL rumors around the league because we got the trade deadline coming up very fast. And people don't realize that when the Four Nations break is over and games start going up again, we're going to be 2 weeks away from the deadline. We are pretty close to it happening. I'm surprised we haven't seen more trades in this break, but I think that when we get to the following week, we're going to be bombarded with deals. Next week is going to be an insane week. I just think that's what it's going to be. So I wanted to start off with a rumor that was circulating over the last couple of days. There is a chance that with Mikko Rantanen recently being traded to the Carolina Hurricanes, that he might get traded again. Because the Carolina Hurricanes have been working their asses off to sign him, and if they can't re-sign him, they might consider moving on from him again and trading him to another team, because we saw what happened last year with Jake Gensel, where they kept him around. He did good in the playoffs, but he ended up not staying. It didn't work out, and they gave up a decent amount of assets for him anyways. But Rantanen might become available again, which is kind of wild to think. He might not be on Carolina by the trade deadline, which is weird because we thought when he got there, this is a slam dunk win for the Hurricanes. And now if he gets traded and they don't sign him, they might have screwed themselves over here. But Carter, what do you think? Do you think the Hurricanes are going to be able to sign Rantanen?
I don't know. I think that if they're unable to get a deal done before the deadline, I think you kind of have to move him. No, there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. He's a player that, it 100% sucked to move. You hate to lose a guy like Mikko Rantanen, who can completely change your season, can completely turn you into a playoff team, who can completely make you a cup contender. So it does kind of suck as far as that goes, but you can't risk another Jake Gensel situation where you gave up a lot to get Jake Gensel, and you got a third round pick in return for him because you traded away his free agent rights to Tampa so they could talk to him. So again, that does kind of suck. As I said, you can't really risk that. It's not something that you should risk, and it's not something that you should really take out there, especially because you can get a good return out of him, because by that point, teams are going to be really calling and asking for Mikko Rantanen, because, yeah, it does kind of suck, and teams might be a little hesitant, do we really want to give up this much? He wants out, but teams are really going to want Mikko Rantanen, and especially if they can try and get a deal done with him. Maybe they talk to him for a month or two, or maybe they already know, hey, he's we had interest in him earlier and he said he wanted to come here as well. So maybe we pull the trigger. So we'll see what happens with that. But again, I think that teams should go out and try and acquire Mikko Rantanen.
Well, we see that Rantanen, however the hell I think it's Rantanen. We see that he's on a $4.6 million deal right now on a cap hit because he's retained by Chicago. You need to take advantage of that if you're a team that is a rental. I just wonder, I think the Hurricanes are going to end up moving heaven and earth to re-sign this guy. They might even try and flip Taylor Hall again and try and, use that cap space to re-sign him there too. Rantanen's asking, we saw reports that he was asking for, how much Draisaitl's making. $14 million. I've seen maybe 13.75. So it's very interesting there to see what could happen with him. I wonder, I don't think they would move on from him. I think that it would take a ton for them to really move on from him. And, they would have to get players with term back if they're going to do that. Because why would you trade away a better player that's a rental for probably worser players that are rentals as well? So You would have to get back a player with term. I just would wonder who. Like, I got to be honest. Like, unless if you are using that money that you're going to have in free agency to go out and, like, sign Mitch Marner, you should throw all of it at Rantanen. All of it. There's no other big-name guys you need to re-sign. Like, I get it. You need to re-sign Taylor Hall. He's leaving. He's not staying. You need to re-sign Jack Roslovic. You can get him for a cheap $3 million deal. You need to re-sign Eric Robinson. You can get him for league min. You need to sign Orlov. Orlov's a little bit older. I don't think you keep him around. You might, but definitely going to be cheaper than 7.7. And Brent Burns is 39. You are not keeping Brent Burns. You have to move on from him. Come on. Really? If you're not gonna move on from him, you need to at least sign him for cheaper. I think that you have enough cap space to where you can sign him. It should be no excuse. You should be throwing money at him. You should be throwing the kitchen sink at him. Now, maybe you should gauge the market and see what you can get for him. Because if you can get a return that is better than Marty Natchez and Jack Drury, I think you should take it. Carter, do you think they could get a better return than that?
Probably. I mean,
what would it take for you?
To what? Trade him?
Yeah, high-end, young top six forward, the same that Colorado got or more?
I mean, because I think Carolina's probably more so in win now mode, so it'd probably be close to that. But I think that, I think it should be that. I think it should be something along those lines. Maybe, I mean, I doubt that they would do this, but maybe the Islanders reach out and they bring up Barzal or something like that. Like, I think you want a player around a Matty Barzal, like not and more. Like, I'm not saying just that, but it'd be a Matty Barzal and more to get Mikko Rantanen.
I'm thinking like Noah Dobson and Brock Nelson and like a first.
Yeah, you could probably get that for him. But at the same time, that completely throws the Islanders out of a playoff spot. So, I don't know. I think Colorado was honestly like the perfect team to get this trade done. But I don't know. So, only time will tell.
Yeah, it's one of those things where only time will tell. I don't know, though. Like, I think Colorado might look smart as hell if Carolina ends up losing him in free agency, or depending on what they get for him at the trade deadline. Like, I don't know. Like, they might look smart as hell here if they really do that, because they got a younger player for less term who, mind you, is outscoring Rantanen since the trade. I don't know. Like, I think even Jack Drury is outscoring Rantanen too since the deal. So I don't know. Like, again, I knew we were going to see a little bit of an increase with Rantanen because, again, like he's going from McKinnon to Aho, and that's, I'm sorry, even though I like Aho, he's a decrease. But again, I really don't know. I really don't know what they want to do with them. But I think, again, you should throw money at him. You should throw the kitchen sink at him. I think that we could see a deal get done there within the next week or so. If not, they definitely have to consider it. Or you have to be really confident in the fact that, yeah, we know we can re-sign him and, we'll go on that far playoff run. Because unless if you win a cup, if he walks in free agency, that looks awful for you. So, again, I digress. All right, next up then on the agenda, we wanted to take a look at the Toronto Maple Leafs as well, because there have been some rumors around them that I think are worth talking about too. The Maple Leafs are rumored to be around Ryan O'Reilly and Colton Parayko ahead of the trade deadline. Now, Ryan O'Reilly, player who has, been on a very struggling Nashville Predators team, has been in Canada before, has been with Toronto, has expressed that he may not want to come back to Toronto, though. That's the problem. And then Colton Parayko is a guy who I think is actually expiring as a St. Louis defender, might actually have some term, but is somebody there who I think could fit in well as a good defensive type defenseman. Sorry, he is definitely not expiring. He is on a long-term deal for the next 5 years. So, yeah, he'd be a more long-term fit there for sure. So would O'Reilly, actually, honestly. But, Carter, how do you feel about the Maple Leafs going out and getting those experienced playoff veterans?
I think that's something that they should definitely look into, especially, you know, when you look at playoff struggling teams like the Toronto Maple Leafs. As much as it would suck to look at, you know, we got to give up Easton Cowan, we got to give up Fraser Minton or our 2026 first round pick. It sucks, but it's a deal that you are probably going to have to make realistically. It does kind of suck that they don't have a first this year, correct?
I don't believe they do. I think they might have traded that somewhere.
So I'd assume that they don't have it. So it does kind of suck if you're Toronto. But thankfully you do have prospects that you can move. So I think that it's something that you have to do, especially if you want to win with this core 4 or core 5, however many cores you want to call this.
Of course.
It's something that you got to do. So take a look, and I think it's definitely a good idea for them.
I mean, the one year that O'Reilly was there with the Maple Leafs, he did pretty good. 11 points in 13 games played. Had 9 points in 11 games played in the playoffs. So he's a playoff experienced player. Won a Conn Smythe in 2018-19. I think did they give Binnington the Conn Smythe, or did they give him the Conn Smythe?
I can't remember. I think they gave it to him.
Yeah, they did give it to him. Sorry. But yeah, this is somebody who has playoff experience, Stanley Cup winner. I think you should 100% try and go and get this player. You should. But again, he's made it clear that he does not want to move on from Nashville. He's not really a big fan of the Toronto media either. So maybe that's something you got to look at there too. But again, I think if he's out there on the market, you should at least try. And again, like you say that maybe you don't want to move on from a guy like Cowan or Mitten or, you know, their first round pick. What I say to that is, do you want to win now or do you want to win in 10 years? That's my question to that. I think you have to make the moves that you think are best to win. And I think Tree Living, if he gets the right offer or if he thinks that he can make the right offer, you should take it. You should take a move that makes you better in the short term rather than 10 years down the road where if you get a Stanley Cup, I know that those are two things that I never thought I'd say in the same sentence, Toronto and a cup. But if you get a Stanley Cup, shit doesn't matter in 10 years. Again, it might suck. You know, you might not be that good by then, but I think you would rather a Stanley Cup as opposed to not a Stanley Cup. So I digress. But again, that was something that I wanted to take a look at. I like this one, Carter. You'll like this one. Frank Saravelli reported that the Winnipeg Jets would be, quote, a perfect match for Brock Nelson. How do you feel about that? You're the Jets fan here.
Yeah, I mean, he would definitely fit our lineup pretty well. We do need a second line center very badly, and he would genuinely be a perfect fit, especially on that line. So I would love to get that, but I don't know. Every part of me badly wants Matthew Barzal. As much as that's not going to happen, I want Matthew Barzal.
Barzal's not on the market, dude. Barzal.
Shut up.
He's not on the market.
Shut up. My laptop's going to die. We can't have two bad breaks here back to back. Okay, we're good. I know he's not on the market. A guy can dream, can't he?
Still, though.
But no. Brock Nelson, I think Brock Nelson would be a very good fit in Winnipeg. So I would love that. I would love to get him on our team. I think that we desperately do need a second centerman because, you know, hey, I absolutely love the guy. I got no problems with the guy, but I don't think that Vladislav Nemesnikov is a long-term fix. Just going to be honest.
What would you give up for him? Would you give up a first-round pick? Would you give up your first? The Islanders are trying to re-sign him, apparently.
They are. And realistically, I think that we would probably have to give up our first-round pick. I think I would rather give up our first-round pick this year because I think it's going to be pretty late. I don't.
We'll see.
I have heard a lot of things on Colby Barlow potentially being a piece that could be moved. I've heard a lot on Chaz Lucius potentially being moved. I've even heard a few things on Brad Lambert maybe being moved. I don't want to move any of our prospects if we don't have to, and I don't want to give up any of our top ones. So I'd rather give up our first round pick this year for Brock Nelson, and if we have to throw in, I'd have to figure out which prospect I'd want to move. But I would say that Jaeger and Lambert would be my two untouchables if I was the Winnipeg Jets.
Well, I'll say the same thing to you that I said about Toronto. Would you rather be good now or be good in 10, or would you rather win now or be good in 10 years?
Well, here's the thing is that
I'm not saying you give up all your prospects, but if this is really something you think is going to benefit your team, you should take it, even if you are giving up a top prospect.
I agree, but at the same time, I also think that, if you're looking at Brock Nelson as maybe as a 1-year rental, I think in 2 years, Colby Barlow can come in and provide that. I think that you look in 2 years, I think Braden Yeager is going to come in and perform like a top player on the Winnipeg Jets. I think he could crack that second, but probably third line. So, I mean, realistic, like, it's not like these prospects are 18 years old. These guys are 20, 21 years old, right? Like, these guys are definitely going to be on this team next year, maybe in 2 years, right? I think that Colby Barlow is probably going to make the jump to at least the professional level next year. I think Yeager might make the jump to the professional level next year as well. So, realistically, we are not far off from these guys playing in the National Hockey League. So, I wouldn't want to give these guys up quite yet. But so I'd rather give up the first round pick because I still think that the future is important. It's not a far future for these guys. I think it's a close future, and they'll definitely be able to help us out down the road, especially with depth.
All right, now that's a good point because I get what you're saying. Toronto is different because they're acquiring guys with term. If Toronto was if Winnipeg was acquiring a guy like of Brock Nelson's stature with term,
yeah, like let's say Brock Nelson had 3 years left on his deal, then I'd understand a prospect.
Or let's just say hypothetically the Islanders actually do go out and get Matthew Barzal.
Let's run through this scenario. I love this one. I'd give up Logan Stanley and 8 firsts.
All right, you can't even do that, pal. I'm stopping.
Shut up. I do what I want.
All right, I'm cutting you off.
No.
The LA Kings are among the teams that are targeting Alex Tuch. And Alex Tuch was a name that I was not thinking about, to be honest with you. He is expiring. He has 1 year left on his deal after this one. I was looking at Jordan Greenway. Tuch this year with the Sabres has 43 points in 54 games played. This is a guy who has proven himself as a legitimate 60, 70-point scorer at his best. He has 1 year left after this. I think if you're the Kings, you need more offense on your team. That's for damn sure. I think getting a guy like Tuch isn't a bad idea. What do you think?
No, I don't think it's a bad idea at all. I actually think that would be good. I think Alex Tuch would honestly complement LA very nicely. I think that he would honestly fit their system because when I think of Alex Tuch, I also kind of think of Kopitar. I think he's got kind of some Kopitar shades in him, and I think that Alex Tuch would honestly fit the LA Kings very nicely.
Yeah, I agree. I think we'll move on from that one quickly. It's possible that the Avalanche would look into Braden Schenn in exchange for Casey Mittelstadt. I don't know how I feel about this one. Braden Schenn, 33 years old, has 3 more years left on his contract after this one is 6.5, as opposed to Casey Mittelstadt, who is, as I try and find his name, 26 years old with 2 more years left on his deal at a little bit of a cheaper value. I don't know. If you want to win now, I guess you go out and get someone like Bennington. Oh my God, I got Bennington on my mind.
You do not want Jordan Bennington, I'll tell you that.
Braden Schenn. No, you don't want another like Georgiev-like goalie. I guess, but like Mittelstadt is younger. I mean, he has struggled with Colorado. It's become clear that he may become a trade candidate. but I don't know. Carter, what do you think?
I don't like it. I think that I would rather have Casey Mittelstadt, but at the same time, I think if you're trying to make a...
Why would you want an
What's
older
up?
guy with more term?
Yeah, I don't I don't quite understand. But I mean, you could also look at it as one, he's been to a cup final and won. He is a current captain and a leader. I think if leadership is something that you want in that room, maybe, yeah, Casey Mittelstadt, you do kind of move on from. But I don't think that it's a move that Colorado should make. I think that Casey Mittelstadt would probably fit nicer than Braden Schenn. But at the same time, you want guys who will play playoff hockey, and Braden Schenn will definitely play playoff hockey.
Yeah, I mean, he definitely has more experience there than Mittelstadt for sure, because you look at Mittelstadt, Buffalo Sabre for like 10 years. That definitely not a lot of playoff experience there apart from this past year. But again, I believe that I guess if you want the playoff experience, it makes sense. But for like a longer term picture, I get Mittelstadt may not be the best, but I don't know if I'm a fan of Schenn there at a 6 point. I think he's like a 6.5 million hit for the next 3 years. Be 36 when that's done. Like, unless if you get him retained, I guess. But I don't know. The Washington Capitals could be a good fit for Scott Laughton, and I do not like this at all. Just from the fact that I could not see Scott Laughton in a Caps jersey. I think though, like if you're actually looking at it, I think that Philadelphia should move on from Laughton as a center who has been there for a while. Could get you a first round pick, and Philly already has 3 of those. So maybe if they get another one, that could work.
Maybe
You go like big game hunting. I think you want to use those picks so they get something else. They have 7 picks in the first 2 rounds of the draft. So I would think that if they're going to get more picks, they would want to go out and get someone who's big. Maybe an Elias Pettersson is the name that I'm thinking of. Again, maybe not Elias Pettersson, but somebody of that stature. What do you think, though, Carter?
I agree. I think that as much as it would suck to lose out on a guy like Scott Laughton, especially trading him to a division rival in the Washington Capitals would suck. You get a good return for him. Like, you can't really complain much. You get a first round pick. I know right now it looks like it's a top, or it's like 30, 31. Like, it's going to be very late. But hockey's a weird sport, man. Teams lose in the first round very, very easily. Teams that are supposed to do very well lose in the first round. So, it's an option for sure, for them. And I think if you do get a first round pick in return for Scott Laughton, I think you take that. So yeah, if I was the Washington Capitals, I think that, yeah, that is something that you take a look at, because I mean, as much as it would suck to have a pick at 31 or 32, and then right now a pick at 30 with Edmonton, like, think about it. You could move both those picks and move up in the draft.
First round picks are still valuable, even if they are like 31st.
Yeah,
like,
you can still get great players.
Yeah, you can still get good players. I think if you're Philadelphia, like, first off, you need your pick to be in the top 5. Get a guy like James Higgins, get a guy like Schaefer, get what you can get. We'll be talking about that later on, I guess. But I also want to say, like, I think for them, like, they could really use trading away some of those top picks and going out and getting a younger long-term player. Maybe make a big splash. Maybe you go out and get somebody of a Mikko Rantanen, Elias Pettersson, even Matthew Tkachuk type-esque. If you can make the money work, you can make the return work, and you're not giving up a shitload the other way, that could change the whole course of this team.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, that's just what I think of with the Flyers. I've been trying hard not to think about them because they just make me very depressed. But regardless, I think that's where they should go with moving forward. I got 2 more rumors here, and then we'll send it over to the interview and then wrap up. Brad Marchand wants to stay in Boston, but says if the team wants to trade him, he hopes they would tell him first. But he is open to being traded, I guess, is what we're kind of getting of that. But he would rather stay in Boston. So, Carter, if you're the Bruins, and let's say in the next 2 weeks they don't have that great of a time. Again, they're outside of a playoff spot as of right now. They're like 1 point out from the Red Wings in a very competitive battle. But do you think the Bruins should trade Marchand if they're far enough out by the deadline?
I don't think it's a trade that they should make, honestly. Well, actually, no. If you are far enough out, I think that it is one that you don't want to make, but you have to entertain.
Let's say they hover around where they are right now. I don't think they make that deal.
Like if they're on the brink?
Yeah. Unless if they
honest, I'm going to say this. I think that you have to if you're Boston. As much as you want to keep him around and make him a Bruin for life, you can't. Because one of the things that we've talked about all year with Boston, this even could date back to last season and when we first started, there is no depth on this Boston Bruins team. There is not a speck of it on this Bruins team. And I think that you need players in return for Brad Marchand. Maybe you get him back in free agency. Maybe he loves Boston so much, which it sounds like he does, and I can't say I blame him. But you go out, maybe you get him back in free agency because he loves the city so much. He loves the fans. He loves everything about Boston, right? And he honestly embodies Boston as much as a Canadian could. So I will say that you have to definitely entertain these offers because you need the depth and you need players right now because you are not going to win a Stanley Cup with Beecher as your third line center. You're not going to win with Brazo on that fourth line. You're not going to win with I'm not trying to knock these players, but you're not going to win with Charlie Coyle as your right winger, and you're especially not going to win when you barely have any prospects.
I don't know what you're going to get though for Marchand. He's 36 years old.
I know. I'm not saying that you're going to get the world for him. But you need something. You need something to acquire depth. You could get maybe some third, fourth line guys, or you get like a pick, like an early second round pick. It's not early, but maybe you could get an early second round pick from a team that has one from another team, right? Like there's ways to get players like this. And if you're Boston, you have to look and realize, look, we've already lost Bergeron. We've already lost Krejci. Like, Zdeno Chara has been gone for so long. Like Brad Marchand's the last one from this kind of big core of Boston. He's the last one there. And I think you got to look in the mirror and say, I think it's time to go.
So you're saying that they should, well, if they trade Marchand, then they're probably going to have to like go full sell.
Yeah. I think that it is something that Boston is going to have to do. I think that you have to. You do.
If they somehow end up in a playoff spot, though, do you think that they should do it then? Or should they just push for the playoffs? Honestly, I think you should sell anyway. Like, I'm going to be blunt with you. This has been a horrible year from this team. Maybe selling and getting a top 16 pick, that might go a long way for this team. A long way. They have no picks. Like, they have no picks besides their own. They might be the only team in the NHL that is like that, where they don't have any other. They literally only have their own picks. They don't have any other team's picks because they're trying to win now off of a roster that just can't win now. I think you should come into this free agency and off season and trade deadline and sell what you can. Like I kind of agree with you now. Like just trade away what you can and see what you get back. Use the money that you have in free agency to go out and sign a big name guy. But they'll never do that with Don Sweeney in office. They'll never do that. They're gonna compete as long as they can.
Agreed.
I don't know. And then the final piece of news that I wanted to bring up, or the final rumor that I wanted to say, was apparently Larry Brooks thinks that the Rangers should trade Alexis Lafeniere for Trevor Zegras. And I feel like we've beaten this topic to death already. Carter just laughed, but Let's go over the two player stats. So first off, I'll go over Lafeniere. Lafeniere this season with the Rangers has 55 games played, 14 goals, 18 assists, 32 points. And then for Zegras with the Anaheim Ducks has 32 games played, 6 goals, 9 assists, 15 points. So, ironically enough, Zegras is the same stats he had last year.
Yeah.
In one more game played. But, Carter, you've been a massive fan of Zegras for as long as this podcast has been around. How dumb do you think this is? This is like two struggling players.
This is the stupidest thing I've ever heard.
I refuse to believe that.
As much as I will probably glaze Zegras a little too much at times, okay, you're not trading Alexis Lafeniere. It's not happening. There's no reason to. Not a reason to at all. Understandably, he has talent. Trevor Zegras, I'm saying. And as well, Alexis Lafeniere has talent as well. You just signed this guy to an extension. Just did, that kicks in next year. He was a first overall pick. These trades do not happen often. And what do you think is going to happen when you trade a guy who's struggling for a guy who's struggling? What? That doesn't make sense.
It's a change of scenery, I guess, but like it's two like horribly managed teams making moves with each other. Like for the Rangers, like if Zegras is struggling under Cronin, he's going to struggle with the Rangers not getting a lot of ice time. He'll play the same amount as Lafreniere does, like 12 minutes a night, 13 minutes a night. Like, again, like you think that that's going to really change a lot. And then if Lafreniere goes to the Ducks, he's going to be playing with Greg Cronin, who's also a shit coach. Like, I don't think a lot's going to change there. It just seems like, and I feel like Larry Brooks he's such a clown. He has been calling for this and has been saying such stupid shit for like over 5 years. Like, I've never personally liked the guy, and I get that I'm trying to get into the journalism field and I should be more respectful, but I don't hate him as a person, but I think a lot of the things that he says is just like it's not smart. It's stupid. And I don't think this makes sense at all for the Rangers or the Ducks to really make this move. Seriously. I think if Zegras was going to get traded, he would have been right now, and it wouldn't have been for Lafreniere. We had this conversation so many times in the offseason. We're just going to keep having it? Like,
yeah.
Come on. All right. Well, that's a wrap for that. Any more rumors you wanted to touch base on? Anything that you heard this past week?
No.
All right. We're going to move over to our second and last interview of this episode. I got an interview with Jacob Siwert, a person in ticket sales for the Philadelphia Flyers. Sorry about that voice crack. Siwert went to my own high school, has been talking to us for a while. We've been trying to get him on for a little bit. We finally were able to get him on. This is a little bit of a more educational interview for those who like maybe wanted to get into ticket sales and, things like that and wanted to get into that realm. This is the interview for you guys if you really want to get into that. But regardless, I'll stop talking and then we'll be back to wrap after this interview. But let's go to our interview with Jacob Siwert of the Philadelphia Flyers. We are joined here today in a little bit of a different interview. First off, I'm talking to a black screen instead of an actual person. We'll get into that in a second. But we have somebody who works in group sales for the Philadelphia Flyers, which is basically a position in ticket sales. This is a little bit of an educational interview for the people who, maybe want to get into a position in ticket sales with a pro sports team or get into ticket sales in general. We have Jacob Siwert of the Philadelphia Flyers. Jacob, how are you?
I'm good. Thank you very much for having me on. Excited to chat here and share a little bit about my story, about how I got here with the Flyers and, what I do working for an NHL team.
Now, first off, you live in the Philadelphia area, so I just got to ask you, how was it on last Sunday?
It was awesome. It was a dream come true. I was away at college when the Eagles won in 2018, so wasn't able to come back for any of the festivities that time. So being here for this one was extra special for me. It was very fun, and all the emotions made it something that I'll never forget for sure.
That's terrific. Yeah, I know. I remember the last time the Birds won it, and it's been a little bit difficult since then, especially seeing them get upset in the first round last year. It was very annoying, but I'm
Yep.
glad to see that they won it this year finally against a team that everyone absolutely despised. So it's
Yeah, that made
awesome.
it all the much better. So.
Yeah. So the first question that I'm going to ask you is: were you always a big Flyers and like Philly sports fan?
Yeah. So I grew up in Bucks County, going to Penridge High School like yourself. Obviously, Philly sports is deeply rooted in our area, and yeah, grew up
Oh yeah.
being a big Flyers fan. I remember um, when the team was at its best in recent years in 2010. Me and my family were going to playoff games, and
Ooh.
I was very into the team at that point, and have always followed and been a big fan. It was kind of a dream come true, landing a position with the team that you grew up rooting for once I graduated college. So.
Now, my other question that I'm gonna start asking you with actual ticket sales. I wanted to get out of the way because I didn't know if you were not a Flyers fan. I assumed you were, but
Yeah.
regardless, when you were going through high school, did you like originally want to pursue ticket sales, or was there another field that you wanted to get into?
Yeah, that didn't come into to me until much later, honestly. Went to college for sports media, and really wasn't sure what I wanted to do too much. I started playing around with different internships while I was at college. Um, so uh, Sports media dealt with a lot of like broadcasting and you know, cameras and audio. And one of my internships, I was a cameraman for Cornell basketball.
Oh, okay.
And it was interesting. I enjoyed it, but it wasn't the direction that I wanted to head. So I picked up a minor in marketing and took some more business courses. So on that side of things. Um, and still at the point of graduating, really had no clue where I wanted to go, and kind of found out and heard from my professors that ticket sales was an easy way to go and an easy way to break into the industry. So I figured I'd give it a shot, and ended up uh, landing an inside sales position with the Flyers. So it really wasn't, something that I knew in high school. Certainly wasn't something I knew, before college. And then, really took me up until like the end of my senior year before I decided to go into the ticket sales route.
So, what were the classes that you took in college more specifically? I was going to ask you like what you took in high school, but again, you weren't really heading in that direction. I also don't really think there's any specific ticket sale classes or whatever in high school. I guess like sports entertainment management. But what were the classes that you took in college that really helped you get that job? And not just like what they are, like what do you do in those classes that, will help you to get a real job in the future, like what you have right now?
Yeah, sure. I took different business sales courses. Um, so it's funny. I took like a lot of like sport classes, and then on the other side took business courses. I didn't take too many that were intertwined with both. So I kind of fused those together. But I was in, sales courses, sport management courses. Um, just general like intro to business courses. So I didn't go, too deep into anything. It was really just a minor in marketing. So really didn't get too deep into the business side of things. But I would say the internships that I had provided more with me than um, than the classes did. So, you learn a lot more when, you get into it and break into it. I think that's where I learned the majority of what helped me, land a spot with a professional team. So.
Now, what were the internships that you took? I know you mentioned the one doing the cameras for Cornell, but what were
Yep.
some of the internships that you took that really helped you in getting to where you are?
Yep. So I had that one with Cornell. So I did different camera work there. Also did some social media work for them. I also did some work with like the graphics on the jumbotron and like in-game entertainment for Cornell football games. And then lost out on a few internships due to COVID, like a lot of people did that went to college during COVID times. So I had an internship with the Lehigh Valley Iron Pigs. That was a game day internship. I forget what really that entailed, but that wasn't able to end up happening. That season got canceled. I also had an internship with the Binghamton Devils that ended up falling through. That season got canceled as well. So I was having a little bit of tough luck, but everyone was at the time. And then I had an internship with the Elmira Pioneers. It's a collegiate baseball team in Elmira, New York, about a 45-minute drive from where I went to college. So that was really where I got to dive right in and learn a lot. So my boss there really let me do anything. I did, I assisted with basically everything in the operation there. I was making sales calls, trying to sell tickets. I was also trying to sell sponsorships, but then would also help out with, cleaning up the stadium, after games and taking out the trash. And so basically did anything and everything. But I learned so much from it. And that was my summer right after graduating college. And then really applied a lot of the things that I learned with sales in that short summer into what helped me go into my interviews and learn with getting a spot with the Flyers. So
Now, two more questions on the internships. First off, where did you go to college? I don't think I asked that off rip.
oh good, I went to Ithaca College
Oh,
in
okay.
upstate New York.
Oh, okay. So that's not terribly far from Philadelphia. Like,
Yeah, about 3.5, 4 hours.
oh, never mind. How did you get these internships? Did you like message the like teams and were like, "Hey, do you guys have anything that you're offering?" Or did you like see them on social media and you were like, "Oh, I'll go apply for them there"? Like, it could vary for them, but kind of how did you find these? Because I know there's some people who are like want to get into internships, but they don't really know what to do.
Yeah. Yeah. So, Teamwork Online, that website always has sports job postings. That's, I'd say, the majority of where I found postings for these opportunities. That's where I got the Iron Pigs opportunity. It's where I got the Binghamton Devils opportunity. And then, funny enough, the manager who hired me at the Binghamton Devils um, was the one who ultimately gave me the connection for the internship that was able to happen, and where I learned a lot in collegiate baseball. So I lost that internship, but the manager there was, very nice in trying to assist myself and the other students that lost out because of the season not being able to happen. Helped me out with um, finding and landing another internship elsewhere. So
What was that site called that you said again?
it's called Teamwork Online.
Okay, I'm just writing that down real quick so I can
Yep.
take a look at it. So coming out of going to Ithaca and having these internships, how did the job with the Flyers happen?
So that was Teamwork Online as well.
Okay.
So I really kind of lived on there. I would go on every day and refresh and see any new postings that came in. And now that was about 4 years ago at this point, but I still believe that Teamwork Online is like the go-to for sports teams for posting positions. I haven't done any job search since then, but I believe, according to what others have told me, that is still primarily the route that everything's gets posted. So I would really refresh that site every day and apply for anything and everything that I saw. I really was willing to go into any of the 4 major sports. I was willing to move anywhere that I needed to across the country. But luckily enough, I was able to stay with my hometown team and, the team I grew up rooting for in the Flyers. So I saw uh, an inside sales position get posted there with the Flyers. And that is basically for most teams the entry level sales position that you can get with a team. So applied for that. And I believe there were 3 rounds of interviews and then was offered the position.
So were you originally, like, when you initially got it, was it account executive and group sales? Or did you work up to get that?
So that was with one promotion. So I started off as an inside sales representative. And basically, how that works for most sports teams is you're brought in with a class. The class really usually has anywhere from 2 to 3 to maybe up to like 10 other reps that start with you. I started in a class of 9, I believe, which was on the larger side. So basically, you all start off in the same class. Um, and, what the position is just cold calling and trying to move any tickets that you can. It is very repetitive and, it is very much a grind. And you basically try to shine as best you can and stick out from, the rest of those that are in your class. So, you try to make a name for yourself and it is very competitive. They put you on leaderboards and, tries to see who has the most calls on the day, who has the most emails, and who's made the most sales. So for myself, who, is someone who played sports my whole life and has always been very competitive, I found it a very good fit. And that's what I was always told going in to sales and sports sales specifically is that it is very competitive. So it's very good for athletes or former athletes that are looking for professional careers. So
What's your record for most calls in a day?
I believe when I started and I was in inside sales, I probably somewhere a little over 200,
Oh my
which
God.
was
Wow.
on the higher end. I always tried out hustling my teammates, so that was a lot of calls, and it's crazy for me to think about now because in my current position now, as an account executive with group sales, I really make probably 10 to 15 calls a day. So it's much more laid back. Um, and there's other ways that I go about making sales, like setting up appointments, having people out to games, having people out to the arena. Um, you know, there's different tactics that I use in this current position that I'm in that I generally, wasn't able to do, when I was in inside sales.
So your first day on the job in inside sales, you walk into Wells Fargo or wherever the offices are.
Yep.
What was that like for you walking in there and your first day in that role?
Yeah. So our offices are in Wells Fargo Center. They're right on our sales floor is on the club level of the arena. And yeah, so we started out remote. So I can't,
Yeah.
completely paint the picture with that. But in order to onboard and get like our laptops and everything, we did, obviously have to meet at the arena and meet with our new management team there and everything. So yeah, walking in on that day was definitely a lot of nerves. It was somewhere that I had only ever gone for going to sporting events, going to concerts, and stuff like that. So it was definitely intimidating walking in there, knowing that I was, starting my professional career there, and was, going to try to make a name for myself alongside of, 8 other reps that were starting beside me. So it was definitely intimidating, some nerves, but definitely very exciting. Feeling that really hasn't worn off too much. Getting to, uh, pull up to the arena and walk in as an employee of the team, never really gets old. I always remind myself, how lucky I am and how cool it is that I, get to do it for a living. So.
Yeah, it must be absolutely surreal. Like, you went to that, well, I guess maybe not that same arena because it was named a different kind, but you went to that area for so long, being a fan of the team. You have
Yep.
so many memories in that building already, and now you're going there to work for them. That's got to be an awesome feeling.
Yes, yeah, it definitely was, and it definitely has been. Especially in the beginning, there I was always pinching myself, that I was, there as a professional and in my new career, because just a few months before I was in college, so it was a big switch up, but definitely very exciting and something I'd definitely recommend. If anyone is thinking about working in sports, it's definitely a very cool thing.
Now, we talked a little bit about your first position with the Flyers. Now, when you got into account executive and group sales, first off, how did that promotion happen? And secondly, what is your kind of like day-to-day operations as an account executive with that?
Yeah, sure. So I think I got promoted in about 3 to 4 months,
Oh, wow.
which is pretty quick. I think I made a pretty good name for myself. Um, So in inside sales, you're selling, really any type of ticket. A lot of it is focused on membership sales, which is selling season ticket packages. So full seasons, half seasons, partial plans. But then you can also sell suites. You can also sell groups. And I really tried my hand at all of them and really tried to see what I worked best at. And I think it definitely ended up being groups. I organized an initiative for a new group night outing, which was restaurant night. So it was not something that was previously done by any of the sales staff. So I organized restaurant night when I was in inside sales. It ended up selling over 500 tickets. And it was something that I just kind of put together last minute and was really only about a month of work to sell over 500 tickets, which definitely impressed the group sales director. They had a position open up, and they saw me to be the right fit to get promoted and take on that new role. And then, yeah, my day to day with group sales is really what I did in inside sales, which is trying to think of those initiatives that will move tickets. Trying to figure out what will get people out to the arena. So my focus is working with a lot of businesses and trying to sell a lot of company outings. So we'll have businesses of any size come out and have a staff outing for their employees. Holiday parties around the holidays, and stuff like that. So my day to day is reaching out to those businesses. Letting them know what we offer, and ultimately trying to sell them tickets, group tickets, which ranges from at least 10 tickets or more, and any size group is welcome as long as it's bigger than that. And then once I sell them, I also service them, which basically just means making sure everything goes smoothly from the time that they give their credit card information for those tickets until they come out, and beyond. So making sure that they get their tickets, making sure that they're able to transfer them out to all of their guests. If they have a special ticket that's in a special hospitality space with food and drinks included, making sure everything goes smoothly, because it really is like event planning, and making sure that they have a nice night out, and then trying to get them to do it again either that season or again the next year. So that's primarily what I focus on doing.
So you also make well, first off, you don't do like just companies, right? Like, so like me and my family, if it's more than 10 people, could like plan something with you, right?
Yes. Yep.
Okay. All right. I'll keep that in mind.
All right.
Secondly, you create some of the event nights, like the restaurant night is what you mentioned. First off,
Yep.
what went into that, and what specifically was that night about, and what are some other events that you created?
Yeah, sure. So restaurant night, that was um, basically me reaching out to restaurants and asking for them to asking the owners to bring out their employees, and just have like a nice team bonding night out. So uh, really nothing other on their end than to come out and have a nice relaxing night out, with their staffs. I well, grew up in high school and college working in restaurants, and in hospitality. So it was something that I was very familiar with. And yeah, just basically getting owners to, give their staffs, a nice night out and treat them and make sure they're keeping their employees happy. So that's basically what, restaurant night is. Um, in addition to that, I've also done brewery night. So that's getting different breweries to come out, and give their staffs a nice night out. That is a little bit more of a networking event for them. Breweries in the area are few and far in between compared to restaurants, so it's a smaller community. So they like coming out and networking with the others, in their industry. In addition to those two, I've also had corporate night and small business night, and those are more of the same thing. Having business owners come out and treat their staffs to a nice night out at a Flyers game. So
Awesome. That's the restaurant one's actually pretty smart. I thought it was like you brought restaurants out to the game and like had them sell their food, but that makes a lot more sense.
no, yeah, and honestly, sometimes there would be confusion with that where I'd be reaching out to a restaurant, and that's what came to their mind, is that I was offering them like a business opportunity to come out and sell their food. Um, so
Yeah, I don't think you can do that. I don't think
no.
you can. No. So I gotta ask this, and I know you're not like in like like you do a different form of ticket sales instead of like like trying to like sell like individual tickets.
Yep.
But when it was announced that Matvey Michkov was coming over to Philadelphia, did you see a large increase in overall sales from your end? Or
Yeah, definitely. There was certainly a surge when they announced Michkov coming over. Um, and there was a lot of, like the rumorings, across the hockey world, that he might come over. And so there were even, an uptick in ticket sales that came, before he officially was, signed or official to come over. So we saw a little bit of an uptick before, and after there was certainly a surge in ticket sales as well. People trying to get in and realize that it is an exciting time to have Flyers tickets. So.
What are some of the biggest like companies that, like, maybe not biggest, but some of the companies that like you were happy to, speak with and make deals with for them to come out to see a game?
So I work with primarily small businesses. So I don't work with too many large companies. Two of the biggest ones I'd say that I do work with is Freedom Mortgage. They're pretty well known in the area. They have the naming rights to Freedom Mortgage Pavilion, which is why a lot of people will know their name, concert venue. I work with Cooper Health, which is very large health network in South Jersey. But other than that, I do primarily work with more small businesses. So.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, another question that I have is, what is the biggest challenge when you're trying to sell tickets to these groups?
I'd say the biggest challenge. I'm just trying to think. There's always a lot of objections. Trying to think of what might be the most typical one. Certainly, when I started 4 seasons ago, the biggest objection was team performance. So that was when the Flyers were in a very extremely low spot, where there didn't seem like there were many upsides at all. Losing just about every game, and there didn't seem like much real direction. So team performance in my first season was, far and away the objection I heard most of the time. And now that, there is a much brighter future and good young core and good direction of the team, I definitely don't really hear that anymore. Lots of times with businesses, it's money, I'd say is the biggest objection. Just trying to get, small businesses, to come out and, spend their money with us isn't always on the forefront of their minds. So I would say that's probably the biggest one these days.
How do you kind of like combat that when you were dealing with that when you got in with the poor team performance? Because again, that those years were painful. But how did you kind of deal with that as like somebody in your position to sell tickets?
Yeah. So uh, I think the way that I dealt with it is trying to come at it from another angle. Um, I have the opportunity of selling a lot of like food and beverage packages and hospitality spaces within the arena, and it would really be trying to get them to think of it more as like just coming out just to have a good fun night out, um, and not so much about hoping to come out to see a win. So really just trying to frame it as come out, have a fun night out. Food and drinks in a nice space is always a good time. Your employees will appreciate it, whether the team wins or loses. So just trying to get them to think about it in a different way.
What is a perk that came with this job that you have now that you may not have realized you got when you went into it? I think I might know the answer to this, but
Um, I would say like the friend and family tickets
oh yeah,
for bringing out friends and family to games has definitely been nice, and then not only Flyers but lots of times I get other events that come through, so like concert tickets, Sixers tickets. I've also had the opportunity to go um, watch the Eagles in premium spaces in suites at Lincoln Financial Field, which has been really awesome. So I would say those perks, and the Flyers always obviously have connections. So I in December got to watch Eagles Panthers game from the Flyers suite, which was very cool experience. And is the company giving me what I'm trying to sell to business owners, and that's them treating their employees to having a good time and keeping their employees happy. So it definitely works. It's very cool perks of working in sports. So
Who is somebody working in that field that you've built a really good relationship with that you may have not thought that you would have known getting into this job, if that makes any sense to you?
I would say so not in the industry. I'll go about it this way. I've made good connections with like restaurant owners and local brewery owners that lots of times will treat me. I help them out with good rates on tickets, and before I've had the experience of going out to a restaurant with my girlfriend, and the restaurant owner will treat us to a free meal or free drinks. So that's definitely been a plus in building connections around the Philadelphia area.
Well, we appreciate your time, Jacob. I got one more question for you before I let you go.
Sure.
We're gonna go back to high school.
Okay.
First off, what year did you graduate from Penridge?
Graduated in 2017.
Okay, I gotta ask you, who were some of the teachers that you had in high school? Can you remember some of them? I just wanna see.
Sure. I had Mr. Friedman.
Yeah, I have Mr. Friedman too.
Yeah, loved Mr. Friedman. Do you have him for what was it? Broadcast?
For the Ramble, like the
Yeah.
media production. Yeah, I have him for that this year.
Nice. Yeah, I was on the Ramble for senior year. Let's see. Miss Surface I had for Spanish. Let's see. I'm drawing a blank. Those two came to mind quick. I had Lyacona. Is he there still?
Oh, yeah. I had Lyacona my freshman year, and then he left and actually went to my girlfriend's school.
Okay.
Very ironic. But yeah, I
Huh.
had Lyacona as well.
Okay. Cool. I don't know why I'm drawing a blank right now.
No worries. I was just wondering, like, if I knew any of them because, again, like you did graduate like 8 years before me, but
Yeah.
I still was curious because I'm sure some of them are working by now. But
Yeah.
Jacob, we really appreciate your time. Is there anything that you want to plug to wrap up here, or anybody you want to like shout out or anything like that?
I don't think I really have any shout outs, but I'll shout out you for having me on the podcast. Appreciate it. Appreciate giving me the spotlight. To always enjoy talking about, how I came about, and, if I'm able to help any others, then, it makes it all even better. So,
Do you have any like promotional nights coming up that we should know about?
I do not. Most of them were in the first half of the season, so
Yeah.
don't really have any coming up. But we got a busy March with a lot of games, so I'll be keeping busy there. But yeah, that's pretty much
Have
it.
you been following the Four Nations?
Yeah, I have. I didn't realize Sweden was playing last night. I didn't watch that game, but I made sure to watch the U.S. Canada game.
Oh, yeah.
And that was an awesome game. I haven't seen an exciting hockey game like that in a while, so that was really cool game to sit down and watch.
I bet you're pumped for Thursday. Who do you got? Who do you think's winning?
I don't know. I would say U.S. hopefully.
Oh, I love that. You gotta root for your country. Come on.
Oh yeah.
All right. Thank you so much, Jacob.
Of course, man. Thank you. You have a good one.
Thank you so much to Jacob Siwert and Erik Jesberger for joining us today on these two interviews. That will do it for this episode of the NordCast. We will be back with you either on Friday or next week. We might be jumping back on later this week to make a recap on the Four Nations final. We'll see. But yeah, Carter, any final thoughts?
Go Canada.
yeah, and I'm just going to say, go United States. That's all we're going to leave it at.
No, you said yeah to go Canada. You said yeah to go Canada. Nordic's cheering for Canada, baby.
That'll do it for this episode of the NordCast. Thank you for watching. Go United States.
Wow, that really hurt my feelings.
Yeah, I'm glad it did. Yeah, all right.
Fuck
That'll
yeah.
do it for this episode of the pod. Thanks for watching. We appreciate it. 8 episodes away from 100. Finally did it right this time. We'll see you in the next episode. Thank you guys so much for watching or listening to yet again another episode of the NordCast. If you enjoyed, please subscribe down below or follow us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. If you want to follow us on TikTok, we are at NordCast. If you want to follow us on Instagram or Twitter, follow at NordCast_. That'll do it for this episode. I'm Nordic. Thanks for listening from all the crew, and we'll see you guys in the next episode.